Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Orange County School Board's work session, which has been scheduled today for the purpose of discussing the facilities update. Let me mention to those members of our board and any members of staff who may be calling in to please silence, to please make sure that you're on mute while you're logging in so that we don't get any feedback. And I think all communication from our board members that aren't here will go through Amy to have them recognized. So she will alert me and I'll recognize you in the order that you call in. The public will not have an opportunity to participate in this work session to provide public input because this is not a regularly scheduled school board meeting. No action will be taken today, and there will be no pre-agenda period in which the public would normally address the school board on relevant topics that are related to the work of the board. Thank you all so much again for joining us. Board members are attending in person or telephonically, so I will take roll call, beginning with Vice Chair Gallo.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Good morning, Member Salamanca.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning, Member Ferrand.
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning, Member Gould.
Good morning.
Good morning, Member Felder.
Top of the day. Good morning.
To you. Member Castor-Dental.
Good morning.
Good morning. And Member Byrd?
Good morning, Chair.
Good morning. All right. I want to remind the public that board members will not be engaging in outside electronic or digital communication during the meeting so that we can focus on the business before us today. To my fellow board members and district staff, when speaking, please make sure your microphone is turned on and speak directly into it so our YouTube and Orange TV viewers can hear you clearly. And now we'll begin with a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. For the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Dr. Vasquez, I am going to turn the meeting over to you for our facilities workshop.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, it's here, our long-awaited facilities annual presentation. And the team has done a phenomenal job in putting together information for the board to see and hear all the accomplishments of our team and facilities, as well as looking forward and the needs that we will be facing. There are several presenters, but I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Rory Salambini, who is our Chief Facilities Officer. It is a long presentation. When you see BASM coming up, you know that we are at the home stretch. Okay, so Mr. Salambini, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Vasquez. Good morning, Chair Jacobs and board members. We're excited to share some of our recent accomplishments in our assessment of long-term capital program needs. In the interest of time,
let me stop you for just a minute. I was trying to get a read on the folks in the back. Either the mic may be not turned on, or it might just be because it's too far away from you. It really, I know how frustrating it is with these mics because you have to be right up against them, not turning your head, which is very difficult when you're trying to read a presentation like you are, Mr. Salamini. I feel your pain. I just do it every meeting.
How is this?
That sounds better. Thank you.
Well, we are excited to share some of our recent accomplishments in our assessment of long-term capital program requirements. In the interest of time, I'll allow each team member presenting today to make their own introduction. I do have a few brief comments to introduce several themes impacting our program before I turn the presentation over to my team. I want to begin with the bottom line up front. The capital needs for the 8th largest district in the nation are significant. Although we are fortunate to have enjoyed the support of Orange County residents and visitors with a half-cent sales tax surtax that has significantly contributed to growth and modernization, the area continues to grow, and the additional school capacity requirements combined with the maintenance and renovation requirements of our 210 schools and additional support facilities, comprising almost 36 million square feet of building space, are estimated to require more than $6 billion over the next 10 years to provide and sustain the quality educational facilities needed to support the district's vision. This slide highlights the elephant in the room with us today. As shown here is the increase in the average cost of a new elementary school over the past 5 years. On average, the new schools that we open in 2024 will cost more than double what the district paid for similarly sized schools opened in 2019. 2 years ago, we forecasted a 10-year program requirement of $3.4 billion. As I noted on the previous slide, today we're now projecting a $6 billion need. Several factors have combined to drive rapid escalation in construction costs. Pandemic-related supply chain impacts, the continued robust construction industry, and the impacts of general inflation have all combined to create a perfect storm driving construction cost escalation. As noted in the Wall Street Journal this past weekend, construction spending and employment are at record levels, with contractors reporting backlogs measured in years. There is no evidence to suggest that the recent rapid increase is temporary. More importantly, this escalation significantly exceeds general inflation. So although revenue is expected to increase as a result of general inflation's impact on sales tax and property values, the growth in construction costs currently exceeds
Mr.
increases
Sempe,
in revenue by a significant
Can I
amount.
ask you to hold for just a minute? I think we're working through some technical difficulties here, and I just don't want any of our board members to be at a disadvantage. So, huh? And the next question was, yeah, I can't find the presentation on BoardDocs. How can we get the presentation on? It's helpful to us because there might be a slide that you go through that we want to focus on. Yeah, no, we should have access, and when we don't have access to it. So if we could work on that. And Member Felder, did you have a question you wanted to raise?
Well, we do need to see as they're talking about my laptop. I'm sorry. We would like to see, because you've done such great work to try to present it for us. So we do need to see it because we may have questions. And my difficulty is my laptop is dead. So.
And so there's no confusion. We do have the presentation in front of us. It's just helpful for us to go back and look at slides on our own without, as we're going through this.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I? So the presentation, the size of the file is too big for BoardDocs, so what they're doing is they're making an adjustment. There's a video that's included in there, because it was on BoardDocs yesterday. And so if we can take maybe just a few minutes.
Absolutely.
They're going to take the video off.
Yeah, to reduce the
And you
size.
should be able to see it on BoardDocs like we did.
Okay, we'll take a brief recess while we work on that, and at the same time, perhaps somebody can help Member Felder. And if not, it would be really helpful if we could print out the presentation for Member Felder if we can't get her computer working. It's 100 pages. Somebody's going to have to get busy fast. Is Dr. Vasquez open now? Is Deborah? I know they're all working on that. I'm trying to figure out who I can ask to work on printing out the presentation from. You got it, Dr. Williams? Thank you, Dr. Williams. Also, I want to mention that it's our practice to always have the presentations on BoardDocs so that the public who might be tuning in can follow along. Obviously, that was the plan, and what I understand is that's where we were this morning until it became obvious that because of the videos, it was just too large of a file. Good, it's in now, I understand. Wonderful.
And Madam Chair, we are having some YouTube issues as well, so this gives us a little bit time to fix that as well.
Okay, great. Back to the recess. Yeah. We will reconvene the meeting, and I just want to acknowledge to anybody who may be following us on YouTube that we did have some technical difficulties, and we also wanted to make sure that the agenda was available to the public who may be viewing this either now or at a later time, that they can follow along, not just with YouTube, but with the actual presentation. And Mr. Salabini, I want to turn it back over to you, and you had some comments about the numbers on the presentation that would probably be helpful for the public.
Yes. So the presentation that's been posted on BoardDocs is missing one slide. It was a slide that was too large for us to post, which is actually a video that we've included in the presentation. So commencing with slide 56, the slide numbers that we'll be using will be one higher than the number that is on BoardDocs. So this time I'll go ahead and continue with the presentation. So this is another theme of our discussion today, which is life after the list. For the last 20 years, the program has focused on two primary requirements: meeting the capacity requirements of the rapid growth in our county and completion of the list of 136 projects that was established with the original sales tax referendum in 2003. We have active projects underway for the last 4 priorities on the list, with 3 of the 4 projected for completion by the end of 2024. As we'll discuss later in the presentation, higher priority projects that were completed in the early to mid-2000s will reach 25 years of age during our 10-year planning horizon, generating a new group of comprehensive renovation requirements. Addressing the needs of these aging facilities are a significant component in our long-range plan and requirements. One note regarding the formatting on our slides. The number following the site name for each project indicated here indicates the board member district in which the project is located. We'll follow that convention throughout our presentation. Another change in our future program compared to our recent history is a need for fewer new schools. This slide compares the new schools completed over the past 10 years to our anticipated requirements for the next 10-year period. We'll share the analysis for new schools later in the presentation. Additionally, we also expect a significantly reduced requirement for replacement facilities in our future comprehensive renovation program. Previously, the majority of program resources were engaged in construction of prototypical schools to satisfy both new capacity and facility replacement requirements. Going forward, a significantly greater share of resources will be engaged in renovation and remodeling of existing facilities. It's not only our capital construction program that is impacted by a tight labor market. Depicted here is a snapshot of maintenance department vacancies recorded at a similar time over the past 5 years. Vacancies currently exceed 10% of allocated positions. We're working with our Human Resources Department to creatively attack this issue, but the labor environment presents a significant challenge in our support of ongoing operations. With the stage set, I'd now like to review the elements of our capital program that will be discussed today and are shown on this slide. While most are self-explanatory, I want to highlight a few items. First, we're introducing a new category for capacity enhancement. This category addresses permanent classroom additions at campuses with long-term needs and no alternative for relief. We have previously referred to these as functional equity, which captured both functional deficiencies and capacity shortfalls. We are retaining functional equity in the comprehensive needs category to capture needs for true functional deficiencies, such as a K-8 campus requiring a gymnasium. Comprehensive needs is a broad category that includes the remaining 4 priorities from the list of 136, the 20 schools that were too new or recently renovated at the time the list was created to warrant inclusion on the list, which are denoted here as the pre-sales tax list, the renovation and remodeling requirements of facilities that are being repurposed for other needs, the functional equity that I mentioned, and finally the schools that were renovated or built in the earlier mid-2000s that will reach 25 years of age during our planning period. Our program also accounts for system renewals that are accomplished via the capital renewal program and are required separate from a comprehensive renovation, the renovation needs of our ancillary facilities, and the refresh of student technology on a 5-year cycle. We'll follow this agenda to review recent accomplishments and communicate program needs in the categories on the previous slide. We'll first review our maintenance and custodial operations, followed by an update on recent and current projects. As those projects include new prototypes for all grade levels, we'll provide a brief overview of our new prototype designs. The remainder of the presentation will address future program requirements, including new schools and their real estate requirements, and the remaining needs in the other program areas. I will now turn the presentation over to my staff, beginning with our Maintenance Director, Mike Winter, who will provide an update on maintenance and custodial operations.
Great. Thanks, Rory.
Let's just take a brief moment now. Dr. Vasquez, do you have a preference for whether or not we ask questions along the way or hold them till the end?
I don't have a preference. It is a very long presentation, and so that if the board prefers to do it in chunks so that it's fresh, that's the team is here to.
So let's do this. Let's take questions now on what we've just heard, but then we have an agenda in front of us, and I would suggest as we get done with each bullet point on the agenda that we break then for questions, all right, and answers. And Member Gould, you have questions, and so does Member Felder. Thank you.
So, thank you for the recap on kind of where we are and where we're going with some of the challenges. But one of the challenges that I wanted to just get some insight on is the classified vacancies. And, you know, our greatest assets are our facilities, hard assets. Obviously, our greatest assets are our students and families, but the little treasure boxes we keep them in, and maintaining them, especially with the huge investment the community has made with the half-penny sales tax. Labor is tough, but what are we doing to ensure, and what are our strategies for ensuring we can keep up the maintenance as best we can? I know there's gaps, but as best we can in the long-term strategy.
Mike, you want to go ahead and address that?
Sure. We've done a few different things. So over the past few years, we've advertised additional bids for term service contracts that are trade-related for work that is maybe above or more quantity than our staff can handle. Recently, our managers have been attending more job fairs with advertisements and flyers, with the benefits of working for OCPS. I believe we have another one mid-next week that we're attending. And more recently, what Rory had alluded to, we're working with Human Resources, and we exercise the hard-to-fill clause in the contract. And we a lot of classified positions allow up to a 5% increase based on experience. The hard-to-fill clause allows you to go up as high as 20%, and that also impacts existing employees in those same hard-to-fill positions. And literally, I believe the first wave just went out on the paychecks this last week, and if not, it'll be the next pay cycle, and then we'll start including that in our current advertisements for those same positions.
Great. Just to follow up, one of the things, and I know this isn't the forum because we're focused on the facilities, but at some point, either offline or in a board discussion, I think we really need to be looking at, not only in this with bus drivers and some of the other positions, our own part-time pool staff, not just through agencies. We have a lot of folks that have chosen to take either early retirement in this community or are looking for part-time work that may not want to do the full-time job but may be able to do shifts, 2 to 3 days a week. And it would give them opportunity to stay connected to the workforce, and also maybe help us fill positions. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Member Felder.
Thank you. I just have a general question. It'll probably get answered throughout your presentation, but thank you so much for your work. I just wanted to know, basically, what determines for you as a facilities department what school needs to have? You said something about consistent renovation. So is it, tell me, how do you determine what school's going to need consistent renovations? Because after talking with you and meeting with you, Roy, and I thank you for taking out the time to explain things to me, I know that that's what we do. We build schools, and we make sure schools are maintained. We build schools, make sure they're maintained. So are there particular schools that were built in a certain time frame that you know is going to need the constant renovation, or you just haphazardly choose it when someone complains about something not functioning? I just need to understand how you make that decision.
And that will be addressed later in the presentation, but briefly, our renovation requirements are primarily driven. We have a facility condition assessment, which we'll talk about later in the presentation. So as we're planning for renovations, we use a facility condition assessment, which incorporates the life cycles of various systems. We have another program, cap renewal program, that addresses some of those needs at certain periods of time. We're generally targeting the 25-year time frame, as we'll discuss later in the presentation, for our next round of comprehensive renovations. But things age at different times, and they don't always meet expectations. So we also have, obviously with the maintenance department being part of facilities, they can communicate when the work order requirements are getting excessive, or when particular components may have deteriorated sooner than what we would have forecasted. So we do use a variety of different tools, but from a program standpoint and from a scheduling of the major renovations standpoint, it's primarily related to the age of the facility.
All right, just one follow-up question. What takes so long? Like, once you've made a decision and you know that you need to renovate a school, and I know we've talked about it with some of my schools because of the materials, and I understand all of that and COVID, but I mean, are we running it through 4 and 5 hands to make a decision, or do you and your group primarily makes a decision, does it have to come back to the superintendent to make it, then back to the board, then back again? I'm just trying to figure out the timeline, because it does take a long time for a lot of stuff to get done.
So that's probably a pretty long discussion about the whole process, but I'll attempt to address it briefly. So these, and I'll talk specific to comprehensive renovations. These comprehensive renovations are major projects. We move students out of the classrooms, we install portable buildings. We have to phase them because we can't replace the whole school with portables, so the construction duration gets extended because of the phasing. But they are significant projects, and we can't just decide today I'm going to go do a comprehensive renovation and hire a contractor for the next day. We have to assess the specific needs, and then we have to prepare design documents. Some of the comprehensive renovations that we're talking about exceed $50 million. These are not small projects. They are major undertakings. And so we follow state statutes in selecting the design team and the contractor for these. That process has certain steps that follows. We bring those selections to the board. Once the board approves that, we have to negotiate those agreements, and then we start the design process. And our plans typically allow for as much as a year to go through the design process. We can't immediately go from, hey, this is a project, to here's a complete set of documents. That's something that also proceeds in stages with reviews along the way to ensure that the end product meets our needs and that the design documents are complete so that we can get good bids. Once the design documents are complete, the construction manager then takes those documents. He has to solicit bids, he solicits the bids. He puts that together in a guaranteed maximum price. That requires negotiation, and so we go through a negotiation period for the GMP. Once negotiations are finalized, we prepare and execute an agreement. That's the point of time that the contractor can start acquiring materials. And certainly in today's environment, we still are experiencing significant delays for things like air conditioning units, 8, 9, 10 months, roofing products up to a year. So once the contract is signed, it is still some period of time really before most of the significant construction can take place if it requires any of these long lead items for materials. And as I indicated, the construction phase then, because we will also have had to put the portables out there for the phasing of the project, so we can move around the building. But that phasing also limits how much we can do at a period of time, which extends the construction duration for the project. So typically, a comprehensive renovation is going to take longer than what it would take to build the school itself.
Thank you so much, and I'll probably come back around as you go through the presentation to ask some follow-up questions with that, but thank you for the explanation.
Member Byrd.
Thank you. I'm just going to tag on to what Member Gould said about kind of looking at our own for these vacancies. And this is a bigger conversation, I know, but I want to throw it out there. But, you know, we still have but we do have a group of students that when you ask them, what are your plans after high school? I don't know. And we have kids really searching for their future. So I'm thinking, why are we not sharing with them, look at the opportunity you can have with Orange County Public Schools. You could have a great career, great benefits, and then figuring out ways to use OTC to train in these significant areas, because it's as you said, it's not just us, it's the construction industry. We're at major need for these trained, skilled workers. So I really want us to maybe look at new ways to reach out to our students, let them realize the great opportunities that are out there, and then help them get trained and come back and work for us to maybe help with some of these issues we're having. And, you know, using community resources to help too, like I Build Central Florida is a great resource that we could bring, get back involved in to help with that. So just an idea.
All right. Thank you, Member Byrd. We're going to move on to the next part of the presentation. I want to take a moment just to thank you for the format of the presentation. I've been asking behind the scenes several times if we could have the individuals who are presenting on the presentation. This is very beneficial. Obviously, we know you're here, but we go back to look at this at a future point in time, refer to this document. We might not know who to contact. So having that information, Superintendent, I wanted to just let you know, I think this is going to be very beneficial if we can incorporate this in presentations moving forward. Now, back to you.
Great. Thank you. Facilities maintenance consists of 6 departments: asset protection, grounds, landscaping and pest control, facilities maintenance, centralized services, and 3 geographic maintenance areas, which is northeast, northwest, and south. Together, they provide the day-to-day maintenance needs for over 35 million square feet of building space and over 5,200 acres. The Facilities Maintenance Department key objective is to maintain a safe and healthy and inclusive learning and working environments for all of our school sites. We receive hundreds of work requests on a daily basis via work order management system, which are evaluated, prioritized, and assigned in order to be addressed by the appropriate staff member or team. In addition to the reactive and responsive maintenance work that is submitted from the schools, we also manage preventative maintenance programs across multiple trade disciplines. This effort is led by our building service teams, who correct various minor maintenance items such as lights out, leaking faucets, and door hardware adjustments. We also have building service technicians that are permanently embedded at each of our traditional high schools, as well as OCPS ACE and here at the RBELC. We are also engaged with managing OCPS term service contract vendors that provide technical expertise in specific areas such as elevators, chillers, and roofing. Each of the three maintenance areas maintain an on-call after-hours program comprised of both classified and administrative staff. They provide support and emergency response to all sites 24/7 throughout the year to ensure that every school is ready to welcome students every day, regardless of what may take place overnight, over a weekend, or during the holidays. Asset Protection maintains and services the systems that monitor, protect, and control access to our facilities for all OCPS schools and ancillary facilities from a centrally located office. Earlier this fiscal year, Asset Protection started managing the service and maintenance for various life safety systems in the district. This includes any component connected to the fire alarm system, including backflows and hydrants, and distributed antenna radio enhancement systems, also known as DAS, as well as intercom systems. Asset Protection maintains multiple security measures daily and continues to assess school safety in coordination with district police, which includes hardening of schools with fencing and a single point of entry. The Grounds, Landscaping, and Pest Control Department provides services for all OCPS schools, ancillary facilities, and vacant properties from a centrally located office and 3 satellite offices. They mow, weed plant beds, maintain fence lines, trim trees, and maintain retention ponds throughout the district. They also address washouts and storm drain issues. The irrigation team works with coaches and athletic directors to resolve issues on their athletic fields. Pest control handles ants to alligators and bats to rats. The majority of pest issues are addressed through our pest control contractors, but ground staff responds to ant and wasp work orders. They also perform biannual blanket fire ant treatments on PE fields when school is out. They have a kitchen escalation process that addresses any pest situation that may arise in our kitchens within 24 hours. Last fiscal year, maintenance responded to over 81,000 work requests that were initiated by our schools for their day-to-day maintenance needs, as well as scheduled preventative maintenance work orders, which includes many life safety services. This fiscal year, we are projecting to respond to over 90,000 work requests. Some of the increases can be attributed to the opening of 5 new schools and 2 hurricane events. The work order quantities are grouped where asset protection and grounds totals are departmental, and maintenance work orders are summarized in 3 different categories. General maintenance, which includes work associated with building service technicians and teams, including rapid response teams, do-it-now teams, and on-call. HVAC, which includes work associated with heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. And lastly, other trades, which includes work associated with carpentry, electrical, elevators, locksmith, painting, plumbing, and roofing. Facilities maintenance has a centralized team that is responsible for coordinating and managing recurring preventative maintenance services and any required testing, inspections, and certifications mandated by code and/or state and local jurisdictions. Some of these services, such as fire alarms and fire sprinkler systems, require quarterly, semi-annual, and annual testing. The cost for HVAC filters and water bottle filling station filters equal just over $2.5 million and will continue to be paid with ESSER 3 funding through fiscal year 24. Grounds coordinates and manages their own recurring services, which include contracted services for landscaping and mowing that occur 2 to 3 times per month, depending on the time of year. In order to accomplish all these requirements district-wide, cooperation from school administration is appreciated and needed. The vertical blue bars on this slide represent the number of positions in facilities maintenance, and the orange ascending line represents the building square footage of our facilities. In fiscal year 2009, there were 478 maintenance positions throughout 5 geographical areas in centralized core shops. But through past reorganizations, the number of positions have varied to as low as 401 to where we are today with 426. Within the same time frame, our facilities inventory has increased by approximately 6 million square feet. Beginning this fiscal year, custodial services was reorganized by decentralizing custodial staff working at elementary, middle, and K-8 schools and decreasing the centralized support team that manages all remaining facilities, processes and procedures, standardization of products and equipment repairs, the Keep Stock Supply Program, temporary labor, and inspections. The Keep Stock supplies include hand soap, paper tissue, paper towels, and trash bags. As part of the reorganization, a lot of effort has been put into communication, coordination, equity, inspections, standardization, and training. As an example, prior to the reorganization, training for new employees occurred over a week span, with 4 days of training and a built-in makeup day. Now, with the support of budget, environmental, human resources, and teaching and learning, we are able to fully train new employees in 2 days. District-wide, there are approximately 1,170 custodial allocations, with about 670 of them being custodian positions. With over 200 new custodians already being trained this fiscal year, we are projected for a third of that position to be new employees. With the reestablishment of an inspection program, Custodial Services conducts all inspections in accordance with national cleanliness standards of the Association of Physical Plant Administrators, also known as APA. Historically, the district allows custodial positions based on square footage with additional positions for portables. The current formula is 1 custodial position per 30,000 square feet plus 1 custodian per 20 portables. This has been an ongoing issue for OSPA for nearly 10 years without resolution. At last year's main table bargaining, OSPA proposed contract language of 25,000 square feet per custodial position. The district countered with a letter of understanding, creating a custodial working group with a deadline to complete their work by December 31st, 2022. The working group met 7 times and completed the referenced items on this slide. Orange County Public Schools is a member of the Council of Great City Schools. Annually, during springtime, we report data from the previous fiscal year that is collected for key performance indicators. The results from all participating districts within the council are then published and shared. I highlighted 2 items from the 2022 report on this slide. That concludes my portion of the presentation. Next up will be Craig Jackson, our Senior Construction Director.
All right, thanks. Let's take a pause there. I have, I don't see anybody else wishing to speak. I do have one question on slide 15. Let me go back to slide 15.
Recurrent service.
You mentioned the testing and inspections, and the third item down is DAS radio enhancement systems.
Yes.
Does that include emergency response communications testing to make sure we have adequate signal strength? I know we do that when we open new schools, and I know a couple of years ago we tested all our schools, but is there a frequency by which we come back and test?
Yes, it's done on an annual basis.
We test all of our schools to see
Yes.
if we have adequate signal strength for emergency response teams?
We test all the schools that have a DAS radio enhancement system to ensure that it's still working on how it was designed and installed.
So can you describe for me what a DAS radio enhancement system is?
Sure. So the DAS radio enhancement system, it's electronics and equipments that basically extend the signal for the 800 megahertz radios that are used throughout Orange County for the emergency response teams.
Okay.
So prior to having this enhancement system within our schools, sometimes during tests or inspections, first responders would come into our facilities and they would lose signal strength, in enclosed offices or in certain buildings. So this testing, or the initial testing, then allowed a system to be engineered or designed for that specific school, carrying that signal strength in a positive manner throughout the facility that meets the guidelines for the radio enhancement.
Thank you, Mr. Winters. I knew that we had done that. I just did not realize that we had an annual testing schedule, and I'm thrilled to hear that.
So I do want to clarify.
Yes.
Because I think I understand the question.
Okay.
The testing requirements for the system are that the system is functioning. I believe what you're asking is, are we on a recurring basis testing the signal strength?
Yes, sir.
I don't believe we have a program to do that, and I may be wrong, and I need to go verify that. But the requirements for testing are limited to existing systems. So a recurring requirement to test signal strength, I'm not aware of, and I don't believe we currently have a program to do that.
Okay. Thank you. And if you could get back to us on that.
Yes, we
I
will.
certainly didn't think that we would have an annual test of the systems, because I doubt that things change that much, but some sort of frequency might make sense. So I was surprised. So if you can clarify that at a future point in time.
Okay, and I don't know, Craig, are you able to comment?
No, you guys said it perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know you have an hour-long presentation, so anything that we don't have a clear answer on, we'll just come back at a future time.
Craig
Thank
is
you.
probably the expert on DAS, so that's why I was asking him, but he indicates that we've accurately captured the current
Yeah.
situation.
I've been watching the head nods throughout, the body language. Very helpful, Greg. Thank you. He's the man? Yeah. Okay. And Bassam has confirmed it. All right. Thank you. And we'll move on. We're good to go?
Good morning.
Good morning. The infamous Greg.
That's not good.
Rory, I'm sorry. We have a
Yes.
question? Oh, speaking of body language. Thank you. Dr. Vasquez. All right, Mr. Jackson, you
Okay.
recognize, sir.
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I will be updating you on the recent and current projects in the categories Rory mentioned. I also will be addressing how we are improving sustainability throughout the renovations and reviewing the success of our owner direct purchase program. We continue with our successful track record of new schools opening and opened 5 new schools in 2022. Combined, these 5 schools increased our permanent school capacity by approximately 5,000 students and relieved 16 existing overcrowded schools. As Roy mentioned, we are currently developing new prototypes. The elementary schools opened in 2022 and shown here represent the last iteration of our current elementary school prototypes. We also continue our track record of delivering new schools for less than the allowable cost established by DOE, the Department of Education. As shown on this slide, all K-12 schools opened in 2021 and 2022 were constructed for less than the DOE limit. However, it is unlikely that this trend will continue based on recent rapid escalation in construction costs, Fortunately, the state has recognized this issue and has exempted projects started prior to 2026 from the requirements. This is the future home of Water Springs Middle School. The school first opened in the fall of 2021 and has been housed in the wing of Horizon High School for the 2021-2022 and the 2022-2023 school years. Faculty and staff and students will relocate to their permanent home this fall for the 2023-2024 school year. This project is currently on schedule to be completed in early June of this year. The facility adds permanent capacity to our inventory and approximately 1,200 students and relieves 2 existing schools. Similar to our recently opened elementary school, this will be the last iteration of our current middle school prototypes. Projects are in progress for 3 new schools scheduled to open in 2024. As mentioned previously, each school is the first iteration of a new prototype. Faz Ali will provide information on these prototypes later in the presentation. Site 47, a new elementary school in the Horizon West area, is currently nearing design completion. Construction is expected to begin this summer. Site 47 will relieve Hamlin Elementary School, Panther Lake Elementary School, and Water Springs Elementary. Construction on Site 50, a new high school in the Starwood area, is progressing on schedule. Mass grading is complete, and site utilities and building foundations are nearly complete. Early material procurement of long lead items was implemented to achieve project schedule. This high school will reach major construction milestone by going vertical with the standing of tilt wall panels this month. This school will relieve Lake Nona Middle School, Lake Nona High School. Site 129 Middle School construction also underway with site grading and underground storm drainage underway. Site 129 will relieve Lake Nona and South Creek Middle Schools. These 3 schools will increase our permanent school capacity by approximately 5,400 students and provide relief for 6 existing overcrowded schools. We also have projects underway for 2 elementary schools scheduled to open in 2025. With both projects currently in design, construction start is expected late spring 2024 with completion summer of 25, ready for the 25-26 school year. These 2 schools will increase our permanent school capacity by approximately 1,700 students and provide relief for 3 existing overcrowded schools. Site 97 in the Innovation Way area is planned to relieve Moss Park and Sunblaze Elementary. This school was funded for opening in 2024, but real estate challenges have delayed the opening to 2025. Site 130 in the Lake Nona area will relieve Lariat Park Elementary School. This is being constructed adjacent to Site 129, which is under construction right now, and this will help share some of the costs with our general conditions and general requirements on the project. These 2 campuses will be the first reuse of Site 47 elementary prototype that opens in 2024, and lessons learned from Site 47 will be incorporated into the reuse designs in the future. Active capacity enhancement projects are shown here. These projects are permanent capacity to existing campuses, provided on-site relief for overcrowding. Jesma Lambert will explain later in the presentation our process for identifying these capital needs. Design has commenced for the elementary and middle school classroom additions shown here. Construction is scheduled to start in the fall of this year and complete by the fall of 2024. We expect to occupy these schools in the 2nd semester of the 24-25 school year. Oak Ridge High School classroom addition is nearing design commencement and is projected to be completed by the summer of 2025. These classroom additions will increase our permanent school capacity by 1,600 students. Constructing a classroom addition on a live campus comes with many challenges. Each of the 7 campuses noted on the previous slide have unique site conditions. However, this picture of this proposed classroom addition at Dr. Phillips Elementary School is a representative of the 6 other campuses and helps demonstrate the challenges we face with this type of project on a live campus. One of the biggest challenges is constructing a new structure in close proximity to the existing school. It's a very tight site, and we don't want to disrupt the operations of an existing school. Rory noted that we are nearing completion of projects on the original sales tax list of 136 projects, with the remaining projects at 4 technical campuses. With the construction notice to proceed for OTC East projected this month, all but OTC South will be underway and the track for completion in 2024. Programming is currently underway for the OTC South project, where we anticipate a combination of replacement facilities and renovations. Currently, we anticipate construction commencement in early 2025 and completion in 2027. OTC East and OTC West are being replaced on new sites, and both of these sites will be repurposed, as I will explain in a later slide. Completion of OTC South in 2027 will mark the completion of the original 2003 sales tax list of 136. Shown here are the 20 schools which were either opened new or newly renovated within the 5 years prior to the preparation of the original sales tax list. In FY21, we began planning comprehensive renovations for the first group of 5, adding another group each year. The final group of 4 schools and 1 middle school will be planning for FY24. Currently, projects at 15 sites are underway in planning or design phases. Lakeview Middle School, Howard Middle School, and 3 Points Elementary School and Winter Park High School will start construction in this summer, with completion starting in 2024. All 20 are expected to have their summer comprehensive renovations completed by 2027. Where existing facilities were replaced at new locations as a result of projects on the list of 136, there is an opportunity to repurpose the existing facilities for other district needs. Funding is still required and is included in our budgeted requirements to address the building systems renewal requirements of these facilities. In most cases, the plan is to utilize the facilities for programs and activities that will require minimal investment in modifications to support requirements of the new program. Funding has previously been allocated and planning is underway for projects with a projected completion date. Remaining projects are dependent upon future allocation of funding. Currently, sorry, shouldn't have changed the slide yet. Currently in, papers are sticking together. Capital Renewal Program, new or newly renovated facilities won't stay new forever. Recognizing this, the board has established and funded a capital renewal program to preserve the efficient operation of school facilities. This capital renewal program provides for replacement or renovation of systems and equipment costing $50,000 or more, which are accomplished in small and intermediate and large projects. Unlike comprehensive renovations, which holistically address building and program requirements, the capital renewal program is limited to the renovation and replacement of individual building systems, similar to the air conditioning unit replacement depicted on this slide. These projects are typically completed without displacement of students or staff and rely heavily on summer and other breaks, and also utilize shift work to avoid disruption to educational programs. Although contributions to the Capital Renewal Fund commenced in conjunction with the initial sales tax referendum, the district began executing capital renewal projects in 2014. Throughout the end of fiscal year 2022, we have completed 273 projects at a total cost of $327 million. Currently, in fiscal year 23, we have 47 active projects addressing requirements at 106 sites, with a total budget of $382 million. Of note, the total budget for active projects exceeds the expenditures for the first 9 years of the program. This increase reflects growing needs as our inventory increases and as building systems and components reach the end of their useful life. Later in the presentation, Baston Graham, our program manager, will discuss anticipated future capital renewal needs. Now I'd like to quickly review some of the typical capital renewal projects. Shown here is a multi-system renovation at Ocoee Middle School gymnasium. The before and after aerials highlight the energy efficient improvements that resulted from many capital renewal projects. In this case, the project replaced an existing roof with an energy efficient cool roof, meeting our current design guidelines requirements, and also replaced existing HVAC equipment with new, significantly more efficient units. A significant number of the capital renewal projects are accomplished behind the scenes, as the two projects shown here illustrate. These projects reduce maintenance costs and increase reliability of existing systems. Additional benefits of the two projects shown here include the additional safety features associated with voice evac requirements for the new fire alarm systems, and a better student and staff comfort and energy savings that are realized through the upgrade of building HVAC system controls, which is the picture on the right. Capital renewal projects can include both refurbishment and replacement. The picture on the left illustrates refurbishment of a water-cooled chillers. We are typically able to rebuild these twice to extend their life expectancy to 30 years. Renewal of these types of chillers is a manufacturer's trademark process and provides an extended 5-year warranty with each renewal. Other projects accomplished full replacements as depicted in the picture of a new air-chilled cooler on the right. We are able to generate significant improvements in energy consumption through our capital renewal and comprehensive renovation projects. As previously mentioned, our HVAC and roofing projects typically result in reductions in energy consumption. We are also utilizing the capital renewal program to accomplish LED lighting replacements, and our comprehensive projects typically include combination of measures that improve efficiency. Comprehensive projects also are designed to comply with Green Globe requirements. This slide indicates the number of different projects of each type that will have or will be completed during the 2018 through 2027 timeframe. We are also using stimulus funding, referred to as ESSER 2, to accomplish efficiency and indoor air quality improvements through the recommissioning of existing heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems at 90 campuses and the addition of bipolar ionization at 36 campuses. My final slide depicts the continued success of our owner direct purchase program, or we call it ODP. As a government entity, we are exempt from paying sales tax on the purchase of materials and equipment required for our projects. Through our owner direct purchase program, which we implement in coordination with our construction managers and their respective subcontractors, the district is able to purchase a large portion of the required material for projects directly, thereby avoiding the sales tax that contractors would otherwise pay or pass to the district. As the graph shows, since 2011, we have achieved sales tax savings totaling slightly more than $33 million through the program. The total saved is approximately equal to the construction of a new elementary school and illustrates the significant benefit of the program. This concludes my portion of the presentation, and I'd like to turn it over to Faz.
Before we move on, let me take a couple of questions. Member Gould?
First, thank you. The West has kept you busy in the Southwest. I did not see Windy Ridge on the capacity enhancement list, and we really need a building there to accommodate the K-8 program.
Sign language from Bassam.
Okay, thank you. I like sign language from Bassam.
All right.
The
For
esteemed,
those who might be tuning in, that will come up on the next slide or the next presentation.
That picks up all the future classroom
Okay, so that will be
Fantastic.
coming up later in the presentation. Go ahead, Beck.
Okay.
But I just want to clarify, yes, we do have a slide to discuss future capacity enhancement recommendations. Advance notice, Windy Ridge is not on that, so the comment still applies.
Okay, thank you. How do we get it on there? We'll get that conversation in the next round. The esteem, I know you're talking about on the West Orange 9th grade campus. I saw that as renovation. That needs to be a full replacement. Is that what you mean by renovation there? Because that is not any kind of prototype we work with anymore, and it's probably the last of the portable structure model. So that, and I know money is tight, but we really need to look at that and making that the same standard and prototypes as our other campuses.
So the Esteem Campus houses a variety of different programs. The core buildings, which are similar to, I believe, Acceleration West, we plan to renovate similar to what we did at Acceleration West. And then we require some additional space for those, for the programs that are out there. And so that additional space will be accomplished in a new building.
Okay. So I know it has a lot of staff support in it, but at one point we were bringing students there too, correct?
Correct.
Vasquez?
May I, Madam Chair? Yes, there are, and we are actually, the plans include expansion of the program, and that will be incorporated into the design. The expansion will not occur this upcoming school year. It will occur, I believe, the year after. And it's a small number of students that are
Right.
impacted, but the renovation will address all the programming needs of the it'll be middle and high school.
Okay, thank you. But where those students are, we just need to make sure that they are getting the same and even more enhanced, probably, facility component. And that would be one, if it's not in our standard budget, that I think we could look at some philanthropic partnership with, if that becomes a permanent program placement there to enhance that.
Just if I could, I do want to say that what we have planned there is a comprehensive renovation of that facility. So
Great.
it will have a significant amount of remodeling. So really, we're just using the bones of the building, again, the permanent core buildings that are in good condition. But it will be a comprehensive renovation to satisfy the various programs that we have on that campus.
Okay, in my next briefing, let's do a deep dive into that so I can better understand what all is going on there. My last is, two more. One is the LED lights. Do you know how much money we've been able to save? I know you talked about that, and one of the initiatives of why we wanted to convert them all was because there was a not only better for your eyes, but it was a cost savings. And the second is the air quality. Talk a little bit more about the ionization system and what it's doing to scrub the air, so to speak, and make our long-term qualities a little bit better. Thank you.
Yes. So, no, I don't know how much we've saved from our LED lighting retrofit program, but we'll see if we can pull together some information in that regard. Bipolar ionization is basically a process that improves the efficiency of the filtration system. So it enables the system to filter smaller particles, and what it actually does is it clumps particles together to make them larger so they can be pulled out of the system by the filtration system that you have.
It's so cool. I just wanted you to explain it so it was on the record, because it does help with keep things a little healthier in our systems and longer, because it helps that additional kind of air scrubbing quality.
The other thing that it does for us is that in the state of Florida, based upon the building code, we are able to reduce the amount of outside air when we do that because of the improved filtration. In Florida, outside air is a very challenging issue for HVAC systems because of the humidity. So that provides an energy savings benefit as well as a first cost benefit because it helps reduce the size of equipment when we install it. And those are all the reasons why the district made the decision to start bipolar ionization in 2014. So what you see here is facilities that were not close to renovating that didn't have it installed initially, and so that's what we're using the ESSER funds to do.
All right, let's go to Member Felder.
Yes, I probably have to come back. I'm sorry. I probably need to come back around, but if you look on page 29, the balance of the sales tax in technical colleges, on the OTC South Campus, comprehensive replacement and planning, has it already been planned to replace by January 2025?
So that date reflects our anticipated construction start for that project. It is obviously a large campus, and so we're planning for a 2-year construction period. We will have to do some phasing so that we're able to keep programs operating while we accomplish the construction.
Are you talking about new programs?
I think I want to defer the program discussion to Superintendent Vasquez.
Yeah, because I'm supposed to be meeting, I think, with Mike Brewster, right? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, you are,
Okay.
and that information will be provided to you there. That was delayed due to the request of the board member for us to revisit the numbers and programs at that site. They have collected the data, I believe, for 18 months, and we'll be able to share that, and a decision about programs that will remain will be based on that data. And Dr. Armbruster, I believe, has that meeting scheduled with you.
Yeah, he does. Thank you. One more question, follow up. Thank you. On page 32, when you talk about addressing the capital renewal needs, do you alone, as a facilities group, determine whether or not certain monies are going to be used for certain things, or does that come back to the board?
So the board in the budget process allocates, I would call it a bucket of funds for capital renewal. And then pursuant to board policy, we make determinations of what systems need replacement. So, and obviously we have a large number of projects with a large number, at a large number of sites.
But it does come to the board, right?
So the allocation of funds to the capital renewal program comes to the board. The individual systems and projects do not. Larger projects, we do bring the appointment of the architect and the construction manager to the board for approval. So those projects will get another review by the board. But projects that don't require us to separately hire an architect or a construction manager, typically using the authority that the board has given us, we identify those project needs, and again, using our facility condition assessment, our maintenance input, and other things to determine when things need to be replaced, and then we proceed with the project.
Yeah, I understand you'd make that decision about when they need to be replaced, but I just wanted to make sure we were clear on some of the decisions that are being made does have to come through the board. So I wanted to be clear on that. Thank you.
Member Castrodino.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you so much for all this information. I'm sure it took a while to put together, so thank you. I have a question that came to mind from slide 36, sustainability projects. And I wondered, do you have like a point person in your department that is in charge of the sustainability upgrades, or is everyone involved in looking for those opportunities to ensure that we're using the latest energy savings techniques? And
so of course, Jennifer Fowler, who is actually in the operations division, is the district's point person for the overall sustainability program. Within facilities, we do not have an individual that's specifically designated for looking at sustainability improvements. I will say that it is a consideration as we plan every project, as we determine our design guidelines. The other thing that we're going to talk about in the next section of this presentation is some analysis that we did do in conjunction with our new prototypes. So with each prototype, we did a high-performance design analysis. So we specifically commissioned an analysis to see, looking at alternative systems, wall systems, HVAC systems, et cetera, to see if there were cost-effective improvements that we could make to improve the sustainability of the facility. I will tell you that generally what we are doing based upon that analysis, and again, it'll get covered in the next section, is we have a very cost-effective and efficient approach. It is not the most efficient. To make more efficient improvements, however, the return on investment is significantly long. And so we have chosen at this point in time not to make changes in what we do for a variety of systems. So we'll cover that a little bit, again, a little bit more when we talk about the new prototypes.
Great, thank you. I had questions about prototypes, so I will hold that. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Castellano. Member Ferrand.
Okay, thank you so much, and I appreciate all the information. So quick question on page 30, it's just talking about the comprehensive renovations. I noticed Boone High School is on there, and it would be in the pre-planning phase. Are you able to explain a little bit? I just want to make sure, I know we've, I think, discussed this before, but there's definitely some serious issues with the 100, 200, and 300 buildings. Sewage backing up, a lot of issues with the bathroom situations, and then also their ESE department. The bathroom that is provided for them is so tiny and very uncomfortable for the teacher to help assist any of their students who are adult size in this tiny little bathroom. I think it was originally made for pre-K or smaller children. So just wanted to make sure that that would be a part of the renovation.
Well, first I would say that we wouldn't wait until this project, which really probably won't start construction until 2025 or 2026, to address things like sewage issues or those sorts of things. And so, the maintenance department is charged with maintaining these facilities up to and even during comprehensive renovations that are some time phased. Typically, we do address programmatic requirements. So if we've converted a space from a different use to a different age of children, or if it has different needs, then those types of things do get included in our comprehensive renovations.
Perfect. So what you're saying is they may get a new bathroom, or as part
of the comprehensive renovation, yes. If the programmatic requirements do require that, then it would be included. So that really distinguishes comprehensive renovations from a cap renewal program, is that we attempt to meet existing prototype requirements and address the programmatic needs. And so that's the comprehensive nature of the renovation that we're talking about. So if the program requires that, then yes, that would be included in a comprehensive renovation.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
All right, that concludes the questions.
Before Craig leaves, I want to go back to the DOS question, because I was corrected on one point. So where we have existing systems, where we have installed a system, and I would note that all new schools get a system. So when we started the program, we tested signal strength in all our schools. Schools that had existing schools that had satisfactory signal strength, we did not install a DOS system. Every other location, we installed a DOS system, distributed antenna system, to enhance the signal strength of emergency communications. And then, since that point in time, our new schools have been built with a distributed antenna system. So the annual testing for existing systems does include a signal strength inspection. So the only gap is those schools which do not have a DOS. We don't currently have a program for returning to test. We have discussed internally perhaps a 5-year cycle for those, but we have not yet implemented that program. And if recollection serves correct, it's approximately 50 schools that don't have a DOS. That's why I wanted to keep DAS here. A little bit less than 50 schools don't have a system because at the time we tested them, they have adequate signal strength.
Okay, thank you. Just for people my age, when I hear DOS, I think DOS. And I remember those punch cards that I had to put in. I'm a lot older than you are, sir. So DAS?
DAS,
DAS.
okay.
Yeah, that way. There's not too many dinosaurs out there that would be confused. But just one follow-up question on that. It sounds like, I'm assuming based on what you said, that it is easier to test because we have the DAS system. It's easier to perform that test than it would be if we just had a consultant come in and perform the test, or we perform the test on the other 50 schools that don't. Would that be the reason that we are able to do the annual test on the ones that have a DAS system, but not the ones that don't?
Well, the annual test is a requirement, so it's actually a requirement that we have to meet. And
A requirement
it's
by
required.
Florida Building Code.
The Florida Building Code?
Yeah.
Florida Building Code requires us to test that system annually, so we're complying with those requirements as part of our testing program.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It requires us, if we have a DAS system, to test it.
Yes, it requires existing systems to be tested. And it's
But-
not just the signal strength testing. We have to test various components of the system.
But
There's
if
some
we-
specific test requirements that we have for the system.
But if we don't have a DAS system, then we don't have to test the signal strength.
That's correct.
Okay. So the one concern I have from an equity standpoint is because there's signal strength in a school 1 year, I'm not an expert, but it would seem to me that over time, things might change such that we don't have signal strength. So I would ask that we look at how we ensure that we are testing on a similar basis. And that's not asking for a commitment, but look at that from an equity standpoint. And we can have a conversation offline.
Yes,
doesn't
but you
need
are
to.
correct that, and it's more dependent upon what happens around the school than what happens in the school. That could impact the situation where at one point you had adequate single strength and maybe you don't. So the
Yes.
point's taken, and
For
we'll have further
instance, the
discussion
massive
on it.
campus of UCF could very much impact signal strength coming to a building like this because of interference. So anyway, I want to make sure that we are treating all of our schools and our students.
We do work closely with OPD and the sheriff's office and the communication team from the county. So if there's complaints at one of the schools that doesn't have it, we know right away. So it hasn't happened recently, so we don't anticipate any issues right now. So the SROs know where to call if they're having an issue.
Okay. I wish I could tell you that right this minute. That makes me feel good.
Yeah.
But I would hate for the time that we are notified to be the time that we failed in a crisis. So
Yes.
anyway, more conversation at a later time. Thank you. And we're going to move on.
Good morning. Today we are presenting a brief overview of our new elementary, middle, and high school prototypes. While you will see some of the design elements in this presentation, we are specifically concentrating on 3 items that we have enhanced in these prototypes, namely safety and security, health, wellness, and sustainability, and extended learning opportunities, indoors and outdoors. The district's strategic goals are identified in blue. During the planning process, we gather input from our stakeholders, namely principals and administrators, staff, students, and the community. The dialogue takes place in different forms: in-person and virtual meetings, community meetings, online and in-person surveys, tours of similar facilities, and lessons learned. We will now look at the first item, safety and security. We are maintaining some of the existing security elements that we currently have in our schools, such as our single point of entry and technology systems on our campuses. We are adding a second resource office in the new middle school and high school. Some other elements that are newer to these prototypes include providing a secure courtyard exterior space for outdoor activities, relocating activities to safer zones within the campus, and implementing other hardening measures. So let's look at our sustainable design. Energy conservation and renewable energy are important in order to increase the health of our buildings and improve air quality. We continue to utilize Green Globe's rating system that meets Florida statutes to evaluate and verify our sustainable efforts. While some of our older facilities hovers around a 1 to 2 Green Globe threshold, our newer, more efficient schools meet the 2 Green Globe goal. We will continue evaluating and implementing sustainable concepts and hope to increase our building efficiencies and health moving forward. Sustainable features we utilize can be separated into 2 categories. 1, the high-performance design, and 2, renewables. High-performance design category demonstrates continued efficiencies in our building design, such as walls, roof, windows, and building systems. These systems continue to demonstrate environmental efficiencies. Renewables is defined as the harnessing of energy that is natural and self-replenishing. Currently, the new OTC West campus is under construction and includes a pilot program for a roof solar array. This pilot program is estimated to have a return on investment of 16 years. This 16-year return on investment was assessed prior to the more recent cost escalations. If reassessed today, there is a possibility that the return on investment will change. We are also installing solar domestic water heaters for the field house at the new Site 50 High School. Like Rory mentioned a little bit earlier, this chart shows our high-performance design analysis of our building systems and renewables in each of our new prototypes. It exceeds what we currently do and shows the following. The return on investment exceeds 30 years for roof, walls, and building systems, and the return on investment for a typical solar array exceeds 25 years. This extended return on investment reflects the current rapid escalation in cost we are currently experiencing. Currently, these additional enhancements are unattractive to embrace, and we will continue to utilize green globes and adhere to prevailing statutes.
It went too far. Yeah.
Yeah, too far. Okay, one feature of our new prototypes, all elementary, middle, and high school, we have developed and implemented extended learning opportunities. I want to show the proposed collaborative space in our new prototypes. Currently, in our middle school and high school prototypes, there are collaborative spaces in open areas. These areas, although adjacent to classrooms, are difficult to supervise and support. These spaces are common to all grades and do not carry student stations. In each of our new prototypes, we have modified these spaces into more flexible, collaborative, technical resource spaces. They are enclosed in between classrooms and easier to support. They are common to all grades in each of the elementary, middle, and high school, and they do not carry student stations. They are made up of two smaller spaces. The graphic on the left shows two smaller rooms that are separated with a removable wall that can be opened into one larger space. The graphic on the right shows one larger space. These spaces are consistent with all the amenities of a typical classroom, including technology and flexible ergonomic furniture. They can be utilized for smaller group or breakout sessions when divided, or larger classroom testing or demonstration when open. The new elementary school differs somewhat from the current. It houses a secure internal courtyard flanked on three sides by instructional spaces, administration, and media, allowing for increased supervision. The student capacity is unchanged, and there are two elevators instead of one. New instructional spaces include right-sizing, enlarging the art and music labs, and the introduction of the technical resource spaces previously described. This graphic shows the internal courtyard of our elementary school prototype and how it lends itself to increasing outdoor instruction time. It features flexible learning and gathering spaces for project-based activities like school gardens, class, or group activities. Shade is provided from canopies and strategically located trees. Again, the elementary school, one of the enhanced features of the new elementary school is the location of the intermediate classrooms, restrooms. In our current elementary school prototype, restrooms for all intermediate classrooms are accessed from the corridor outside the classroom. Students would leave the classroom in order to use the restroom, making supervision difficult. In the new elementary school prototype, as the graphic shows, the restrooms are accessed from an internal shared vestibule inside the classroom. This removes supervision and safety concerns. There is also a dedicated safe zone in each classroom. The new middle school is similar to the new elementary prototype, has a secure courtyard that is flanked by instructional spaces, administration, media, providing enhanced supervision. The capacity of the middle school is increased from 1215 to 1243 as we have introduced a new theater program. The core buildings for this facility is planned to house a 1,500 capacity, and the site is planned for a future classroom building. A second elevator has been added. Currently, there is one. Flexible technical resource centers have been reconfigured and can be used as classrooms if needed. Again, they do not carry student stations, and they are open to all grades. A life skills apartment and chill room is new to this middle school prototype, and each classroom has a dedicated safe zone. The outdoor learning courtyard is similar to the elementary school and is centrally located within the campus. Supervision becomes easier. This courtyard provides opportunities for increasing outdoor instruction time, project-based learning, instruction, performances, and group or individual activities, including art and agri-science, share this space. A covered flexible platform is strategically located, and strategically located trees provide shade together with the outdoor dining area. And now we look at the new high school. This prototype has an increased capacity from 2776 to 3241. This 17% increased capacity accounts for 10% increase in square footage. The new layout features 2 compact main buildings as opposed to 8 main buildings in the current prototype. The site is composed of a 3-story classroom wing, a 2-story dining commons connecting to the media center via a learning stair. The second building houses performing arts and the gymnasium. Some of the new instructional spaces in this high school includes flexible technical resource rooms that are common to all floors and grades. Again, these spaces do not carry student stations and can be used for classrooms if needed. We have added a black box theater skills lab and classroom. Also, a dedicated dance studio within the performing arts program. We have right-sized and enlarged the orchestra lab. We have integrated a technology-rich media center that can be used for various school and non-school activities. The graphic shows the media center, the open, flexible media center flanked on both sides with support spaces. There are no internal columns or structure within the space, enhancing the flexibility. Our current prototype has a lower ceiling and columns within the space, limiting its flexibility. Extending learning in part of this, we have a 2-story dining commons that is located in the heart of the campus that is surrounded by adjacent CTE instructional programs, guidance, an internal courtyard, and the second floor media center. This dining commons is free of any internal columns and has high ceilings, which makes the space very flexible. This space can house many activities, including color guard, band practice, cheerleading, CTE competition, and a host of other activities. This is a one snapshot of the outdoor learning opportunities in this new prototype. The courtyard is secure. It's flanked by classroom buildings, other instructional spaces, and the dining commons. This space houses an art patio, greenhouse, outdoor dining opportunities, provides numerous space for performances, and group and individual activities. We will now show a fly around of the new Site 50 High School. We are approaching the front entrance from Dowden Street. This is the front entrance going into administration, the 3-story classroom building with the parent drop-off in the forefront. As we move around to performing arts building and gymnasium, student parking in the foreground, the athletic fields adjacent to the gymnasium with the bus drop-off, staff parking, and we go into the courtyard. We come around again now to the front of the building, and we see the media center on the second floor with administration on the first floor. Back to the front entrance. Thank you. I will now introduce Jasmine Lambert, Director of Construction Planning.
Let's wait and see if we have questions
No,
here.
don't move.
Yeah, first, we have a number of board members with questions. Let's begin with Member Gould.
Thank you. I am extremely excited by these prototypes since many of the enhancements and improvements have been discussed for all the time I've been on the board and have been highly desired. I love the retooling of the collaborative spaces, but in the buildings that we currently have them, like the high schools, the more recently built high schools, is there any way we can retrofit some of this modeling? Because we had talked about the removable or the movable walls previously. I know there's glass spaces, but maybe it's in the furniture. And I know that more in capital renewal, but I would like to get that on the agenda. You don't have to answer that today. Yippee on the elementary arts and music increase. Love, love, love that. Love the redesign of the bathrooms. You did not talk about bathrooms in middle and high school, though, which is where monitoring and safety are even a higher concern with our staff and our parents. So that is a question. What are we doing there, and how do we maybe bring some of that same modeling in I don't know if it could be more cohorts. I know it would be very expensive to do in high school, 2 classrooms at a time, but and that's a concern. You didn't talk about the band room. That's another one. You talked about the orchestra. Is that one in the same? Because sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. But the band rooms in all of my high schools are too small, way too small. I love the multi-purpose of the new cafeteria dining, what'd you call it? Dining commons with all of those student resources in their face all the time and accessible all the time. That's amazing. And in the courtyards, where we have more grass and green spaces, is that AstroTurf or real grass? Okay, what's the maintenance program, and are we installing sprinklers? Because sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, and then it becomes dirt fields, not grass fields. So those are my questions.
So it is currently grass. So we don't have plans for artificial turf on any of those spaces currently.
The follow-up question on that was irrigation.
Irrigation
Yes.
planned. And then how about the orchestra rooms and the bathrooms in the middle and high
So
schools?
the middle and high school bathrooms, again, those are typically group restrooms. It does present a challenge. We're continuing group restrooms. We haven't, we haven't gone to restrooms serving individual classrooms. Obviously, as you noted, that would be a significant expense for this type of facility. So, again, it is typical to what we have in our current prototype for both middle and high school for
Okay,
the for the group
I would
restrooms.
like us to relook at that because they don't work the way that it is now, especially with staffing shortages. They just don't. Or are there other mechanisms for monitoring so that you don't need staff? And I know we don't want cameras, where people are doing things, but just outside the door is not enough either. So how do we help our team to keep all kids safe and make it comfortable for all kids to use the restrooms? So I know we're not going to solve that today. And then my last one was about the band rooms.
I thought we.
We did increase the band room in the high school somewhat, but it's
Can
not a
you
whole lot.
can you pull the mic in closer? Because I don't think you.
We did increase.
No, a lot closer.
We did increase the size of the band room in the high school, but not significantly. We have brought it up to SREF standards, but I'm not sure. I think they are pretty much meets the SREF recommendations.
Okay, so here's where I would differ with you on that approach. We have never, ever stumbled with our arts programs, and where they are very robust in our county. And this is our opportunity to make sure they stay robust and that there's not kids or staff that have to make choices on how they operate those programs, that they can bring all the kids together instead of staggering them and taking them outside or trying to book the gym or whatever. So I would encourage us with such a dedication to enhancing and maintaining the arts to go beyond the minimums.
Okay. Let me call on Vice Chair Gallo, who is calling in. I'm sorry. I thought that was she wanted to be recognized. Member Felder, thank you.
Yes, thank you. First of all, the presentations so far have been so colorful, and I want to thank you for that. But when I first looked at Black Box Theater and theater style, you had my attention and you had my best wishes, because I think that, as Member Gould has said, this county, we do have a robust performing arts capacity here, and I want that to remain. One of my concerns also is band rooms for the schools, and this, looking at a school like this, I don't think I would ever skip school. I mean, just looking at the school, just walking in the school, the desk with the little latch for book bags. We need that for our purses anyway at restaurants. But I mean, everything is so convenient, so beautiful. How could you not want to be there? It's so pleasant. I just want to thank you, whoever the architect was, and it's just so beautiful, and I love it. I love it all, but I do have concerns, as Member Gould said, concerning the bathrooms and the band rooms. I'm a performing arts person. So, and the other thing, you said we're not going to have artificial turf. I'm glad, because that's not good. So we will have a sprinkler system, because with our baseball, softball, diamonds, they need to be watered on a steady basis. So that's going to be a sprinkler system already installed in these new schools so they can get the water that it needs.
Yes.
Okay, and what about, was there anything in any of the schools with any kind of vocational type things? Are we just all going to let that go with our VOTEC schools? I mean, any kind of other areas in the school for any type of vocational type learning at the schools?
Yeah, go ahead.
You have that? You have that? Okay.
Yeah, we do. We do have the CTE
Right.
programs in.
Okay, because the school, I mean, the way it looks, it's just like you've crossed every T and dotted every I in terms of the design of the schools. Very beautiful. So I just had that question and the one about the athletic fields, make sure that they're watered and so forth. And cameras. They're going to all those little places going to have cameras that are going to be working.
We have to make sure we're careful not to discuss any security
Oh,
things in a public meeting.
well, we don't have to, okay, but we will have that though, right? Okay, I'm sorry. We will have that, right?
We
Yeah.
will.
I don't need to tell you. Don't
But,
need to tell
yeah,
me where it's going to be. I just need to know we're going to have it because everything is so beautiful. I want to make sure that the children are.
Let me
protected.
interrupt
Yes,
if I
okay,
could.
go
We actually have a closed door session coming up on security and safety
Oh,
issues.
okay.
So
Thank
let's
you.
address that then.
All right, I can address that then. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Member Casterdental.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really like those designs. Thank you. And I appreciate the additional trees and the shade it provides. And it looks like you're using large trees as well, in addition, instead of like a crepe myrtle for color. I mean, these are important that we put those trees there. I have a question. What is a black box theater?
It's a lab where it's very flexible. It could be used for theater production. It makes making stuff. It could be used for practicing theater. You know, you can add a temporary stage in there and do things. There are hookups for lighting and and sound. So you could do things. It's just a very flexible room that could be used for many different things.
Okay, great, thank you. And as for the bathrooms, I do think we need to address the middle school and high school design of the bathrooms. And I've seen so many different kinds of designs, whether in the airports or in some charter schools. I've seen different designs where they're doorless entry, and then the stalls have a different construction. I've seen them in restaurants where it's almost just like this is the bathroom area, but everyone has their own bathroom. I don't know if that would be acceptable to others, but that's at least another possibility that we could be more creative with our group bathrooms. And then back to the prototype and the energy costs. You mentioned, well, first of all, you used green globes as a way to measure your progress, and I'm not really familiar with that. Is there another metric you can use to compare the amount of energy that each building uses, maybe like their energy usage index number? I know that I've seen that at Neo City, they have a really low usage index. Is there a measurement we use for each school building?
So we do track energy use, energy utilization index. The state mandates that we design our buildings to a green building system. Green Globes is a green building system, and so that's the system that we use, and it has a series of checkpoints, ratings, that you will, for the various systems, how efficient the systems are, and so it is a point system. That is, it's a better measure of your design. That point system is than the energy utilization index, because the energy utilization index gets impacted by density of occupancy, by the specific uses. And so from a design standpoint, following Green Globes makes sense. After we implement our schools, then we're able to measure the energy utilization of the schools, and we can make comparisons on some broad over a period of time. But it is influenced by occupancy and weather and other things.
Okay, thank you. Do we have like a current energy audit or measurement for every one of our buildings? Do you know?
I don't, and I would probably defer to Jennifer
Okay.
Fowler on that regard in operations.
Okay. Okay, and then also when you are looking at the investment into solar panels or renewable energy, and you say that the return of the investment is too long to be worth the investment, are you considering the cost of materials and energy now only, or are you predicting the materials in the future or the cost of energy? And also, are you considering grant opportunities from like the Inflation Reduction Act, which is going to be offering a lot of rebates?
So the return on investment that's indicated here is a comparison of the cost to construct and the energy cost. I believe it is probably today's cost, so it's a simple return on investment. So as energy costs go up, that would impact that somewhat. The statement that Foz made about it being unattractive, the lifespan of the solar array is approximately 25 years. That's what we're told. And so when you have a return that exceeds that, it just doesn't pay, basically. Again, we have our pilot project. We will see how that pilot project goes. There are continuing enhancements in technology and in bringing the cost of things down. But it goes back really to the lead-in comment that I made, that the construction costs, unfortunately, are going up much more rapidly than other costs, to include utility costs. And so that's what's generated these longer return on investments that aren't currently attractive. Now, that doesn't mean they won't be attractive down the road, but for this iteration of the prototype, they haven't proven to be attractive.
Okay, one more question. So
I think you're over time. Let's come back. We'll come back around to you. You're the first person to definitely trigger that.
It might be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'll keep it in. Right.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we'll come right back to you. I have one question. I do have some concerns with the prototypes. I know that the board votes on the architects. Does the board vote on the prototypes?
When you say vote on the prototypes,
Yeah.
you selected the architects
Right.
for these prototypes.
Yes, I know we selected the architects. That I just mentioned. We selected the architects, but I don't recall us approving the prototypes. And I'll raise my questions about my concerns about the prototypes at a future time, but I do have a concern about all three prototypes. Member Front?
Okay, thank you. I had quite a few questions about safety, but I'm being told I have to wait, correct? So
Yeah, we'll take it up on Tuesday.
on Tuesday. Okay, so I will wait on those. The other one would be the bathrooms definitely is an issue. Are there single stall bathrooms throughout the new middle and high schools?
No, they're not. They're all group bathrooms.
Can I follow up to make sure that answer? There are no single-stall bathrooms in the middle and high schools? Is that your answer?
Well, the restrooms are group restrooms. There are individual stalls within the restrooms.
I'm
but
sorry.
No,
There
like
are-
single
no.
stall, like a
Single-person restrooms.
single person.
No.
None.
Not one.
Well, there are some staff, there
There.
would be staff restrooms, but for ones that are designed for students, they would be group restrooms.
That's why I think in the future, I think any kind of prototypes that we bring has to come to the board, because there really are issues where I think we do have students who would prefer to be in a single one-person bathroom, not single stall and group bathroom, whatever the gang-style bathrooms, but just one. And I think having those sprinkled throughout is definitely necessary. The other thing would be, how can we help with the vaping? Have you guys heard of vaping alarms? You know, like how there's smoke detectors, is there vaping detectors or anything like that? I know so many kids who just choose not to go to the bathroom all day because there's major vaping problems going on in the bathrooms, besides a number of other issues, but.
So yes, we have heard of vaping detectors. In fact, we're currently considering the implementation of vaping detectors. They're not included in this school. They can be easily added to any school.
Perfect.
So we haven't incorporated it yet in any of our facilities, although we do have two, I believe it's 2 schools, but we have a couple of locations where we have a pilot in place, and we are considering expanding the use.
Perfect. If there's a way that we could get maybe a report on that, how the pilot's going, and then how much that costs to get that put in our middle and high schools. I don't think we really have an issue in our elementary as much, but middle and high school. And then the last question, I don't know if this is the time for it or when, but the water fountains, do you know how often those filters are switched out, or if they have filters?
Mike, you want to comment on the filters?
Yeah,
Come on up.
yeah, I don't know the exact number at each high school. I think they ended up with 8 water bottle filling stations.
The frequency of the filter.
But the filters are changed up to twice a year. We have stock for filters.
Okay.
There's also a light indicator on there. It's something that schools can put a work order system in, and it's also something that our building service teams check when they do a sweep through the campus.
Perfect. Does that also include the one where you just push the button and the kids drink straight from the fountain?
You know what, I'll need to verify that, but I thought the filter was for any water that's dispensed within that fountain.
Okay.
But I want to verify that.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you. I've had a couple parents let me know that their kids that don't like drinking the water from the school because it tastes like chlorine. So I just want to make sure that we're not giving our kids some crazy water or something.
All right.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Thank you. And then those safety questions, I'll wait until Tuesday.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You and I both. Member Casterdown. I'm sorry, Member Gould. Member Gould.
I forgot to ask one question. Actually, it's probably more for Mike, but this may be a policy decision that we want to take up as a board. I think that we should ban gum at school. And here's the reason why gum. The schools look beautiful till you look down and you see gum, dirty gum everywhere. And the custodial staff is working super hard. And that just is so hard to get up, and it detracts from the beauty and preservation of our schools. So I don't know if that's an administrative policy or if you need the board support for that, but I would be in favor, just like on airplanes, they banned gum. And movie theaters for that reason, because they were ruining
Pass it on to our code of student conduct rules.
Well, you can bring it, but like they don't sell it in the stores and stuff because people dispose of it not where it should be disposed of. Yeah, and movie theaters too. They don't sell gum anymore. They used to. I'm old enough to remember that.
All right. Thank you. Member Casterdown.
Thank you. And I agree the gum is an issue, but maybe we just need to teach them how to get rid of it. It helped with my kids, so. It helps my daughter. Yes. Anyway, my question that I didn't get to answer is just about the prototypes, and if we're not implementing the solar now, are they built so that possibly we could implement that in the future on a built building, like say 3 years later?
You want to comment on that?
I don't think so, because what that does, it enhances the structural requirements of the building to support a solar array on the roof, which really, the cost really skyrockets right now. So I don't think we have included that.
Okay, so then if these are our prototypes, and we can't really change from these prototypes, once these are built and these are in the cycle, we won't be able to add any solar. Is that what you're saying?
I would say that to do the structural enhancements that would be needed so that you could add rooftop-mounted solar would not deviate that significantly from the prototype. The intent of the prototype really is the classroom configuration, the bathroom configuration, all that layout. So if we had to make some structural modifications to support solar on a future campus, we would be able to do that with this prototype.
But only on a future campus, so.
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Assessment of where we are. It appears we're about halfway through the agenda. I'm looking at the items on the agenda, and it's 12:10. We do have lunch that has arrived. So, pardon me? Good? Good. Okay. So if it's the board's pleasure, we could take a break now and maybe a 30-minute lunch break and then come back. Okay, let's do that. Thank you all. We'll be back. It's 12:10 now. Our goal is to be back at 12:40. Thank you. Everyone, just an update. Member Ferrant had to leave. One of her children's under the weather, and we, Member Felder, that's a good question. Member Felder had a previous appointment that has started, and so do we have Member Salamanca on the phone? Do we know? Anybody know? Amy, I think we're fine to continue because it's a work session and we're not taking any action. So we're going to go ahead and continue, and the other board members will watch it and follow up with staff if they have any questions. Okay? But do let me know if the thumbs up or down when you find out, okay? All right, yes. You get your 5 minutes comes around quicker. Twice as fast because there's only half as many of us. Okay? All right. Mr.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you. Before Jesma starts, and the rest of the discussion will be about future needs for the district, but before Jesma starts, I want to go back and clarify one point regarding the ability of our schools to support future solar panel installations. The schools have not been designed specifically for that. However, that doesn't mean that they may not be able to support. That would take a structural analysis, and there are structural reinforcements that can be made. So it does not preclude the future installation of solar panels on these schools or any of our existing schools. So I wanted to clarify that point. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Jesma.
While you're on that, though, can I ask a follow-up question?
Mm-hmm.
I understand what you're saying, that they could be reinforced. Do we know if the cost of after-the-fact retrofit, how much more expensive that would? You're not going to have the answer right now, but how much more expensive is that than if we did that originally? If you could just have that information so that.
We'll see if we can evaluate and make an assessment of that.
Yeah, so that if the board felt very strongly about this issue, that would be a consideration. Okay, we're ready.
Okay. Good afternoon. The remainder of the presentation will address future capacity needs. I'm going to cover new schools and capacity enhancement projects. Planning for new schools involves several steps and collaboration with multiple OCPS departments. Some of these steps occur concurrently to ensure new and released schools open on time. The process begins with the Advanced Planning Committee. The committee reviews and analyzes data to determine the need, location, and timing for relief schools and additional capacity at existing schools. To determine need, we analyze growth and development data, assess capacities, both new and existing, to determine future needs and identify the number of seats needed to accommodate growth. To determine the location, we look at geographical locations where growth is occurring, review the availability of sites, both owned and reserved, then define the site location using a site identification number assigned by our real estate management department. Last, we determine the timing of when the school should open by assigning a year open date and priority number. After the needs are identified, budget reviews and aligns funding with the year open dates and creates a draft list, which is reviewed with senior leadership and the Capital Program Steering Committee, or CPSC. The list is then reviewed with the board for final approval. After that, we finalize site selection and build the school. Next. This is the timeline we work from to develop the plan. Annually, we begin meeting in September to review and analyze data to ultimately develop a draft list of relief schools by early April. We review data such as current and projected enrollment, current capacity and future capacity needs, student and population growth data, infrastructure requirements like roads and utilities, and site availability. Right now, we are at the senior leadership review stage. In June, recommendations will be finalized and presented to the board in a series of workshops on the upcoming fiscal year's budget. The final plan will be approved as part of the budget approval process in September. New residential construction is one of the main factors that determines where we build new schools. Demographics tracks all residential construction as indicated with the colored areas on the map. The circles highlight 4 major hotspots of growth. Horizon West has been the fastest growing area of the district for some time. We have built 15 schools in the past 15 years in this area. The remaining developments are Hamlin West, Silverleaf, and Village I. Southeast and East Orange have now become our fastest growing area. This area has been discussed recently with the anticipated openings of Site 129, MSE2, and our new high school, Site 50, HSE2, in 2024. In the north area, in and around Apopka, we have been seeing increases in the numbers and size of projects over the past couple years. We anticipate we are going to see faster growth as these projects are approaching their construction phase. Next. This graph is of our historical and projected enrollment of our schools. The blue line represents the total enrollment for the district and includes both traditional and charter schools. The bottom orange line includes only those traditional schools that are in our capital outlay. Last year, we had exceptional growth, and we grew by 4,300 students from the previous year. Our current traditional school enrollment is 188,789, and we project that to grow to 191,263 for this upcoming fall, which is about 2,500 students. This is more in line with the typical growth our district has experienced in the past. The projected total enrollment reaches 230,000 by year 2033-34. The projections for our traditional schools reach 210,000 by 2033-34. Next. Here are our recommendations for relief schools for the 10-year capital improvement plan. It includes 10 schools, 2 middle and 8 elementary. They are listed in priority order from 1 to 10, with priority 1 being the most critical need. As you can see on the table, each relief school is identified with a site identification number, followed by the adopted budget year open date, the recommended year open date, and the schools that will be relieved by the new school. Based on data reviewed this year, adjustments were made to the recommended year open date for a few schools. The year open dates shown in red indicate a change in the year open date that's currently budgeted. For example, priority number 3, Site 126 EW4, is currently recommended to open in 2027, but the recommendation is now to open it in 2026. In addition, there is a likelihood that one of the Apart from the recommendations in the 10-year capital improvement plan, we also keep an eye on relief schools' needs outside 10 years. The 4 sites listed are termed on-deck schools because we will closely monitor the growth and development in those areas that could justify moving the relief school inside 10 years. This is a geographical representation of the number of schools that are underway and planned to open each year over the next 10 years, from 2023 to 2033. The green bar represents middle schools, blue high school, and red elementary schools. The 4 schools to the left of the solid black line are underway to open in 2023 and 2024. The remaining 10 schools are recommended to open between 2025 and 2033. This graph illustrates that there is and continues to be construction of new schools over the next 10 years. Next. Looking at the high growth areas, you can see there has been a shift in where the bulk of new schools will be built. With the current construction of one high school in the Horizon West area, the bulk of new schools will be shifted to the east side, mainly in School Board District 2. In addition to providing capacity with relief schools, we also add capacity at existing schools where capacity is needed to reduce or eliminate instructional spaces that are in portables. We term these projects capacity enhancement. A capacity enhancement project is recommended when the school meets the following criteria. The 10-year enrollment projection is greater than the school's capacity. There's no planned relief in the 10-year capital improvement plan, and the additional capacity meets or exceeds 8 classrooms. In some cases, the final capacity of the school may exceed the current prototype size up to the maximum allowed by our educational framework. Here are the schools we're recommending for a capacity enhancement project that are not in the current adopted CIP. They include 4 high schools, 1 middle school, and 1 elementary school. These schools have long-range enrollment projections that exceed their current permanent capacity by more than 8 classrooms. In addition, there is no relief option in the long-range plan. The top 3 schools in priority order, Timber Creek High School, Cypress Creek High School, and Dr. Phillips High School have all been determined to need additional capacity that in total will exceed the current high school prototype size. As with the 10-year CIP recommendations, we have prioritized the list of schools and provided a recommended completion year. This graph shows the steady reduction in portables over the last 18 years. Because of our robust building program, we've been able to continuously reduce the number of portables each year to a projected low of 1,335 by the end of this year. With a projected reduction of 364 leased portables this year, we are looking at a savings of approximately $4.4 million in leased portable costs. In addition to new schools, we also have recommended ancillary spaces needed to support our schools. The only ancillary facility in the 10-year CIP is a full-service bus transportation compound to service the West Area schools. The project is in the programming phase and is scheduled to open in 2026. We are currently working with the City of Winter Garden to obtain a site for this facility. I will now turn it over to Jack Brewer, our Facility Staff Attorney 3.
Let's hear first from Member Gould.
You know, this is my favorite topic, building. Okay, so I am, of course, thrilled to hear that the new relief school is for the elementary on the west side of town is at least in the plan. 2032 concerns me a little bit, knowing the workforce housing that's coming out there, in addition to the growth, not just in Horizon West, but all the way down 545 in some of and up that's not in that footprint. So I would continue to encourage us to look at those projections and those numbers, especially with the acceleration of the multifamily workforce housing that's going to go out there. The middle school that is near Lake Buena Vista High School off of Apopka Vineland Road, I think it was at 2030. Can I get a little bit deeper dive on the thought of not moving that up faster with all of the growth that's happening off of Central Florida Parkway, by Darrell Carter Parkway, over to Turkey Lake? There's so many middle schools and feeder patterns that are affected there now with that transition growth from hospitality to residential. So that's a question I would like answered. The Dr. Phillips, Member Felder had to leave, and of course I in the immediate past representative for Dr. Phillips High School. When you talk about a comprehensive renovation there, is that getting rid of the very old portable style and putting in a new structure?
Yes, and it's a capacity enhancement, yes.
Yay, and the capacity enhancement. And then I didn't hear anything about a 612 Polytech on the west side of town that would do a lot to help naturally relief and give another choice to our community. And I know I talk about it as nauseum, but I'm not going to stop because we just have so many great assets out there with the new medical school, with the energy diversification between Disney and the Expressway Authority, autonomous vehicle technology that's going in, and challenges with still having more students, but maybe not enough to build 3 more relief schools that would suit them without creating an unbalance between schools. This gives a natural opportunity for some of our students to choose a different kind of a public school. So those are my questions.
Okay. First, I'd like to introduce Tom Moore, our demographer, and we use the data that Tom provides us to analyze the needs. So I will defer to him after I finished my answer here. But regarding Site 48, as you know, we look at the numbers every year, and 48 is identified to relieve 3 schools: Southwest Middle, Westridge Middle, and Freedom Middle. And looking at the numbers and how much each of those schools would be over capacity by year in regards to the enrollment projection, 2030 is the year that the school is supported to be warranted, supported by the numbers. And the numbers that we use include all of the growth and development data that's in our system that we use to analyze. Tom, is there anything else you'd want to say regarding?
I just want to say real quick, is it easier for me to take that out? Yeah. The 2 main schools that's going to relieve, Southwest and Freedom, right now they're right at capacity or a little bit above capacity. So there's still a lot of growth that has to occur in order to get at least 800 kids to go into a whole new school. So right now the projections align with, the where we have that school aligns with that 800.
Okay.
Right.
So with the new legislation for some enhancements in being able to do workforce housing, I know Mr. Moore is on top of these things, but I would ask that you really start to look at projections, because if we have developers in the community that are going to partner more with not only the businesses but municipalities to create more workforce housing, that's the corridor that's going to see a big increase. So
Okay,
thank you very much.
Don't get me in trouble with Member Castor-Dental. So the trick is, when the sentence is finished, and I feel like there's a period, I interrupt. So if you just believe in run-on sentences, you might get to your 10 minutes. All right. Member Salamanca. Member Salamanca?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Tommy, thank you I know that as Member Gold said, you're definitely on top of this. And, one of the things that I'm keeping an eye out for is the next high school in my area. I know that the numbers don't say it's there yet, but there's so much multifamily housing coming, as well as just this explosion of development happening in the Southeast that, I want the board and Tommy and all to just always keep an eye out on that area for what would be the next high school. Because I do think I would love to avoid Lake Nona High School overcrowding part 2.
Wow. Was that it?
My question for Tommy is a little bit on, are we changing a bit of how we do the projections on multifamily housing at all? Or do we feel like what we have today has been kind of sufficient to project out the way that we need it? Or maybe just a little bit of that background on how did something like Lake Nona High School get so overcrowded? That's my question.
Well, no, Lake Nona High School did come in really high this year, and it came in way above our projection. A lot of that is we're trying to fix by going in. Stacy's doing an audit of the school and making sure that folks are in the school that they need to be in. A lot of it is people that are moving into multifamily, and what we do is as things pass, we go and we take a look at how these new developments do generate students. I know in District 4 we've done that several times. We've gone in and you've said, I don't think that generation rate is, and it's actually generating a lot more high school students than they were elementary and middle, and we've used that to help us re-guide our projections. So we do that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's helpful. I think it's you have multi-generational housing as well as multifamily. Now, you see some families that have multiple families and kids in one apartment. And I just want to make sure we're able to capture. I know it's really hard, but I think some of the numbers sometimes get skewed because we're perhaps still assuming there is one family per apartment. And what I'm seeing in my district is that's not always the case.
I understand. We'll take a look at student generation rates in your area and then do a reassessment.
Thank you, Member.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Salamanca. Vice Chair Gallo, are you on the line? Okay, okay. She was a second ago?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. I see Vice Chair Gallo. Oh, that's weird. Okay, sorry. Yeah, it showed up. That's why I was a bit surprised.
I was confused.
For that long sentence. Okay, I think we're good to
We're
go.
good?
We're
Okay.
ready to move on. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Good afternoon.
You know what? If we just pause for just 1 second, I forgot. I had run a couple of quick numbers because I know portables are a concern for anybody who has a student in a portable. But just since 2018, we have decreased our reliance on portables by 37%. Just in the 4 years that many of us have been on the board. And since 2006, we have decreased our reliance by over 70%. Yeah. So we continue to see that trajectory on the downward trend. Obviously, we know that there will always be a need for portables on some school campuses as we continue to grow to give us some flex space, which is why I think it's really important as we design new schools to look for ways to include that flex space somehow in a cost-efficient way without building schools that are going to be excessively large as the trends move. I think most of the board members know that in areas with large number of new homes, there's a tendency to have a much higher student population generation. And then as those communities age, mine being a great example, people like me that have 4 kids now have none. And so there is an ebb and tide in terms of student generation rate. But anyway, I'm just really excited to see how much progress we have made since 2006. And now we'll go on to the next subject. Hey, Jad, how are you?
Doing well, thank you. Good afternoon. So my presentation will highlight how real estate management and facilities planning are satisfying the district's capital improvement plan with land acquisitions, site reservations, and entitlements, as well as ensuring mitigation needs are met by new residential developments. Generally, OCPS acquires school sites in one of 2 ways. In our large master plan communities, such as Horizon West and Lake Nona that we've been talking about a lot today, the district has provided sites in predetermined locations based on an analysis of needs. Our team works with developers to find acceptable sites to address the growth created by the new development. These sites are paid for with impact fee credits. Outside of large master plan communities, such as infill sites, we identify target areas and sites working with the Advanced Planning Committee, and we purchase those sites as either a market participant or, of course, the school board may use their power of eminent domain. This chart shows the acquisition status of sites recommended by AP for inclusion in the capital improvement plan provided for your convenience. Sites are identified for every school required by the recommended plan. Although we are confident in our ability to satisfy land requirements for each school in the plan, Site 97 does remain a challenge. The district has a reserve site in the area adjacent to Bomberos Park that does not work based on location, current development pattern of the area, and the placement of existing schools. We are working with a large landowner in the area to find a more suitable space in the Story Park area and have identified a target area. This slide is a graphical representation of the location of the sites and the recommended for inclusion by advanced planning in a capital improvement plan and their acquisition status. So the sites in blue are sites the school board currently owns, sites in yellow are reserved, sites in green are under contract or negotiation, and the red sites are identified sites that we're starting those processes. A reserve site means the site has been identified in the land use and zoning approvals for the particular development and is set aside for construction of a future school site. So in the county, that would be in the regulating plan and the PD land use plan. As previously discussed, those sites are paid for with impact fee credits to the developer who donates the site. As Ms. Lambert noted, new schools are clustered in the Horizon West, Lake Nona, and Southeast Orange and Apopka areas. The next site is a graphical representation of all OCPS vacant inventory, including reserve sites in large master plan communities. Sites in the AP recommended capital plan are in gray, so you can more easily see the remainder. Same color coding as before. Again, the yellow reserve sites are clustered very clearly in Horizon West, Lake Nona, Southeast Orange area, and North Apopka. Our team continues to monitor new developments along with student enrollment through the AP committee process to make sure the district has adequate sites for future growth. Oh, my time is up.
Time's up, Jeff.
As the board is aware, the district no longer enters into CEA agreements, but is still receiving payments from agreements already in place. The first 4 rows of this chart show the number of agreements entered into for each of the fiscal years shown and their future impact to the district. The final 2 rows show collections per fiscal year indicated from previous agreements. One thing that you will note is the amount of new CMA agreements has increased significantly in FY23. This increase is due to actual capacity reaching designated levels of service in those schools, as well as encumbered and reserved capacity reaching the designated levels of service in high school and certain geographic areas. Encumbered and reserved means the development has gone through concurrency, so the seats are saved, but the developments have not been constructed. Just a quick update on school impact fees. So as of October 1, 2022, the full rates are now fully phased in. The next update is due in 2025. And of course, at that time, we'll reevaluate the student generation rate. Impact fees are based on construction costs, which, as we all are aware, and we've talked about a lot today, have escalated dramatically. But at the time of the update, the district will have opened new prototypes for elementary, middle, and high schools. So that current construction cost data will be available for that exercise. Separate from providing for schools for future growth, real estate has responsibility for facility use management or facility rentals. This slide shows the gross receipts for short-term rentals of district facilities. As you can see, revenues have increased dramatically if we've come out of the pandemic and users have returned to our schools. Fiscal year 23 is $3.5 million as of the end of March, and we are projecting $4.3 million in gross revenues. Money for rental income is directed to the school's discretionary account and provides a real benefit to those schools. Principals, of course, have the authority to approve or deny any rental. As of February 2020, the district has used Facilitron to outsource short-term facility rentals. Facilitron handles scheduling, collections, communications with renters and schools, insurance verification as well. Long-term agreements approved by the school board, such as the County Head Start program, do not go through Facilitron. Facilitron also integrates with building controls to allow more control over HVAC functions to save the district money and staff time. Once an event is scheduled in Facilitron at an integrated site, the HVAC controls are automatically adjusted to ensure HVAC is operating for the event. As of now, 86 schools are linked through this program. As the district completes capital improvement projects to HVAC systems, more schools will of course come online. Now I'll turn it over to Bassem Ghanim from the program management team. Of course.
In just a minute.
In just a minute.
In just a minute. Member Gould, you're recognized.
On the land banking, that's probably I know that we're aggressive and I know that we're always looking for sites, but one of the blessings that we had in the Horizon West area was, with the exception of the high school site, was really making that in the comp plan. What are we doing to work with the county and the municipalities to ensure, especially since we don't have as much of a seat at the table anymore, ensure that those sites are in the planning, even when there's not a major master plan, such as a Horizon West or a Lake Nona, but more of a sporadic individual developer, and only the county kind of knows what's coming, or the municipalities know. How do we make sure that there are partners in ensuring that we have all of the locations that are good locations, not after the fact locations for our schools?
So yes, I think good is the key word. We don't always get the best locations in the development. So a couple of things, of course, as Tommy and his group monitor the growth in the area, we discussed that at the AP committee. We've identified areas, and then all developments in the county and the municipality are reviewed by our facilities planning department as they come through the very infant stages, so that we can then interject ourselves into that process and say, okay, like, it's great you want to put another 1,000 homes here, certain jurisdiction, but at this time we're going to need a school site. We don't have one, so we can become part of that process. So we're always monitoring that as it moves forward.
Do we have advocates in the planning departments of the municipalities that know that that's in our checkbox, and it should be in their checkbox too as they are laying out their plans? I think we may have more of that naturally out of the partnerships we've built in the last several years with municipalities, but we're seeing so much turnover. I'm seeing that historic knowledge and those relationships lost, and I don't know if we could ask our municipal partners and our other government partners to actually make that part of their check boxes, right? So if they have a list of how-tos, get a development out, what are those things besides infrastructure? And because they're already looking at it for, safety issues with policing. They're looking at it with fire stations and such. How are we making sure they aren't waiting on us, but actually including it up front in the planning process?
So school concurrency is part of the process. So we are always involved in that loop. And yes, the turnover has made it very difficult. In one local municipality, we tried to set up a call and none of those people work here anymore. It's a bit easier at the county level. There is more consistency, and a lot of that knowledge is passed on. But our facilities planning people are also members of the various planning boards. So we go to MPB at the city, we go to the DRCs, and we go to the land planning boards for the county. So we are integrated in that process as well. But all the reviews, because we're part of the process, facilities planning actually gets on for example, on the county system, and we are part of the review process. Just where it says where Public Works enters a comment, we can enter comments as well.
Right, but that's when we're in process for that actual development to come out, right?
No, that's at the very beginning.
From the very beginning.
The very beginning of the PD process.
So it's all the way through. Okay, so in the 2050 planning, we are very active in that right now with what's going on with the county and the 2050 planning, I hope. And you don't have to answer all that now.
Yes.
I don't want to ever put somebody in a position where I was that it was unclear where a high school should be, because we hadn't included it in that master plan, especially with the opportunity for growth on the west side of town. And I know the chair ensured that we had it in the end when she was.
She can see me chomping at the bit.
Yeah, it was thanks to her that we even had that site. But unfortunately, it ended up being an afterthought instead of a preliminary thought. So thank you. Thank you for all the work you do.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I have to speak to
Yeah, I was going to speak up.
to the way things were done versus the way they are done. There has been dramatic improvement. So back when I first took office, we did have the beginnings in the county's comprehensive policy plans of requirements to communicate, but it was at the early stages. When I took office and inherited Horizons West, there were sites for elementary schools and middle schools required for each of the SAPs. No sites whatsoever required for high schools. I think I've said this several times. I could only conclude that somehow the county felt like none of the kids in Horizons West were going to make it to high school. I really asked the question, I mean, what are your low expectations for this new community? Their expectation was that it was too much to ask of developers to donate enough land. But if you did it in the densely concentrated commercial areas, I thought it was reasonable and fair. So I sought to change that and was effective in changing that. But the input that I got was we only needed one high school site. Had I been told we needed two, we would have had two. And that breakdown really was between the school district staff as well as the county staff. The school district staff was partly responsible for not providing the information. They also picked a site that had significant problems, and the county staff told them they didn't think it'd be a problem and led them to believe they should go ahead and purchase it. So I can point to two individuals that no longer work at either place. One of them was my decision, and one of them was somebody here's decision, but they're not here anymore, and that's just one of the reasons, I think. So the way we do things now is much better. Orange County, though there is turnover, is so much bigger that for every department there are multiple people. So there's this pipeline of people who know what's going on. Our cities, City of Orlando being the exception, our smaller cities generally don't have that pipeline. So when somebody leaves, everybody who knows anything about how we do things leaves. So it does make it more difficult. And some of our cities have a greater appreciation for the importance of having schools than others. So that also complicates things. And then we had HB something 19, can't remember it now, but the one that made it impossible for us to give credits when somebody gave us land that didn't come back out of our pocket. So all those things have made it more difficult, but still I think the amount that we are at the table, the amount of information that we have as we move forward is significantly better than it was when Olympia came along and when Windermere came along. With Olympia, there was nothing. Windermere was a step up. We're much better off, but we're never probably going to be in a perfect situation, but I do think it's much better. I think we have a great team here. I'm been really impressed with Mr. Brewer and his working relationship that he's fostered with the board and with our partners. So thank you for the job you've done in the relatively short time you've been here. And with that, I did have one other comment, if I could. One issue that had come up was some time ago that one of our schools was allowing an outside entity to use the school site without an agreement in place. And it was something that you covered in the presentation about how much money comes into the schools. And I know I asked this question, but I just wanted to publicly ask it, how we are sure that all of our schools are now putting in place the agreements that we need from a liability standpoint. I know the superintendent has taken a lead on that, so I thought I would turn to her or to your staff just to articulate that for anybody who might be tuning in and concerned about it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, once we were alerted to the situation at one of our schools. We immediately reviewed our processes. We also sent communication out to the school so that they have a clear understanding that all of the rentals, and I believe it was mentioned earlier in the presentation, go through Facilitron so that we are able to ensure that all of the proper procedures, all of the insurance are in place, and that the school district is not put in a negligent situation.
Thank you. Thank you. And no other questions? We're ready to move on.
All right. Thank you.
Finish line is in sight.
So just a comment before Bassem starts. I have 3 slides that his presentation transitions to, so we'll complete that and then open it up for questions.
Good afternoon, board. You going to drive already? Yeah.
I'll let you drive.
Can I drive? Is that what you said?
He had the clicker, so
Yes.
I'm reclaiming the clicker. Good afternoon, board, Madam Chair, Dr. Vasquez. Always a pleasure. I do look forward to once a year coming in front of the board. And on behalf of the program management team, thank you for the privilege of serving. We truly take the program seriously. We know this is a flagship of the state of Florida program. We are one of a kind, and we do everything we can to make it successful. My part of the presentation is going to talk about the facility condition assessment and how do we use it as a tool to develop these comprehensive renovation projects and capital renewal projects. And then I have a part where I'm going to summarize all the different elements of the program and earmark the dollars associated with those segments, and talk a little bit about the cost model inside this $6 billion equation that we have on hand. So a little bit of theory and science. Like our industry, when we design and build facilities, revolve around a building cycle, or the life cycle of a building. And truly, when we start the process, we have a 50-year period in mind in terms of how long the building is going to serve. It doesn't happen that way at times, but at least in theory, we commence the exercise with that assumption. And as the building ages, we look at different building elements to monitor the life expectancy of those elements and earmark when is the right time to renew these systems. Of interest is always the midpoint, i.e. at 25 years. We always look at that point as the comprehensive renovation milestone within the whole cycle. So any refurbishment, as we touch these elements, happen at some frequencies, but eventually once I hit the midpoint, it's a significant scope that allows the school a significant renovation. To be able to keep track of all of it, we have employed a tool, and the tool is simply a database. And what's in the database is every facility the school district owns, broken down by building, and taking the building, breaking it down by room at times. So the accounting of the space is very specific, and again, takes into account all these subsystems that collectively make up our building. We use that condition assessment to forecast future capital renewal needs, in that the tool earmarks, hey, it's time to replace my chiller, so I move the chiller into my next scope element for my next project, so on and so forth. Industry standard does tell us to refresh these condition assessments once every 5 years, and we have. Original tool was developed back in 2013 and was utilized at that time to highlight the need as the district decided to go out to the 2015 sales tax extension. So there's a significant output of the tool that defines the need, programmatically speaking. Since 2013, we did go through a refresh in 2018, And we recently completed the 2023 task. Within the tool, we have priorities. The higher the priority, the more critical the need. And it's obvious that life safety and security is on the top priority, as well as keeping the building dry. We always safeguard against moisture intrusion, what would affect the use of the facility from an indoor air quality and air tightness, hence the roof, the HVAC system, everything to do with the envelope. The cost model that I will present in a couple of minutes does cover all these priorities within the price tag that I'm going to share. Again, just to give you a flavor of these different building elements, and we have a total of 12. I'm not showing all of them there. HVAC is a significant piece, as well as the exterior enclosure, and those are primarily the two main drivers of the exercise. As well as capital renewal, the tool allows us to define scopes as we identify the next round of comprehensives. I know we talked about not having a list, but we have to have a list. At least a tentative one that tracks what would be in the next round of comprehensives. And those are two subgroups that we've highlighted and priced within the cost model. That would be the next elements that will have our attention once we wrap up the 20 pre-sales tax group of schools that we identified previously. So on this next round, we have a total of 11 schools off the original sales tax list that back then, i.e. mid-2000s, received somewhat of what we call limited scopes. So the need have been identified, and we need to go back and revisit those schools to pick up that scope. Another subgroup of comprehensives is the schools that were newly built or renovated back in the 5-year period from 2002 to 2007. Since then, and over the next 10 years, those schools will have their 25th birthday and will be candidates for comprehensive renovations. And one of the K-8s on the list is Windy Ridge. Member Gould, my bad, I mixed up lists and thought it was on the classroom edition, but it's definitely on this list since we had it part of the early original list. Over the last, I would say, couple of years, like we've been keeping track of some what I would call program-wide, district-wide initiatives that have been identified as a need. And we want it to be as comprehensive as can be, so we listed those on this slide as we carry on with the discussion. With that said, here's the summary. The summary covers, as all of the presenters shared, a 10-year duration, FY 2024 through FY 2033. Those are the main 6 elements of the program. We've talked about them all with the exception of the last 2, and I'll briefly go down the list before I hand the presentation over back to Rory. The new relief schools are the 10 schools. We've developed a cost model that simply takes the most recently built school, and we believe that we have peaked. We're not going to drop down, but we're going to plateau. So our cost model does carry some modest escalation from this point onwards to cover the entire 10 years. So what you see in the 619 million is the cost of building all 10 schools at the time they need to be completed. Capacity enhancement cover the 7 classroom additions that we've identified, plus the 6 proposed for the balance of the 10 years. You do see the price tag there, and again, based on current dollars escalated. The comprehensive needs is definitely the most significant portion of the program, and in it is as many as 45 schools that will be the next batch of schools in need of extensive renovations. Capital renewal is broken down by year from this point onward, accounting for some projects already on the table in a planning capacity, and the 10-year piece does add up to the $1.84 billion. The model does include the ancillary facilities. We cannot leave those out. They are support facilities. They do have life cycles, and we have identified that $181 million to be earmarked for those facilities. And last but not least is the technology piece. We have the refresh cycle over the 5 years, and we do have some upgrades when it comes to infrastructure and equipment that are captured within that number. So we are a $6 billion program over the next 10 years.
Well, thank you, Bassem. As I noted in my opening remarks, the growth in construction costs that results in that $6 billion requirement currently significantly exceed the growth that we anticipate in revenues. Although we've been fortunate to have adequate funding for program needs in the past, some prioritization will likely be required in the future, particularly if the half-cent sales tax surtax is not renewed next year. In the event prioritization is needed, we've established some recommended priorities which are indicated here. They focus on sustaining our existing inventory and meeting the requirements of growth. I have two final points before I conclude this afternoon. Both are related to the community and economic impact of our program. The local design and construction community is the lifeblood of our program. This slide depicts the number of architectural, engineering, construction, management, and trade subcontractors engaged in our program. 317 different firms were engaged in our work at some point over the past year. Of particular note, 136 were minority, women, or veteran-owned, or a local disadvantaged business. Although both numbers are significant, so are our program requirements, and additional firms are needed and definitely welcomed. Finally, our program has a significant economic impact locally, both in terms of employment and economic output. This slide depicts estimated employment and economic output resulting from program expenditures during the period 2014 to 2021, the period covered by our most recent analysis. Most significantly, dollars invested in construction labor are returned to the community through the goods and services required to support the labor force, generating a local economic output that exceeds the initial construction labor investment. With that, that includes the information that we have prepared for the board this morning. I do thank you for your patience with this very lengthy presentation, and I turn it back to the board for questions on this segment before we conclude.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation. To be quite honest, it didn't feel particularly lengthy. Maybe that's because it's, well, one, it's very interesting, and it was very well delivered and very well put together, and it's a subject, obviously, that we all care so much about, and I know you do as well. So with that, let me call on Member Gould.
Thank you. The spreadsheets got so much simpler than our chart. What did we call it? The chart of all charts?
Yeah.
It's
the mother of all slides.
The mother of all slides. That was it. Thank you. So a couple of just quick touch points. You said that you think that our expense side has kind of flattened. So I know the answer to some of this, but our supply chain is backflowing, and we don't see any more major disruptions or inflationary impacts on our supply chain because we still have a lot of building and growth going on. So that's when. Mm-hmm.
Yes, if I may, we continued the struggles with the supply chain. We still have long lead items on several of the commodities that we need. but we kind of got into 2 years of it to where we are scheduling and planning to absorb that. The premiums are still significant, and as high as they have been this past year and this year, from a cost model, when you look at a 10-year span, you just like you've exhausted the model and you cannot introduce more spikes within the model. And that's why you try to, when you go as far out as 10 years, you find what would average out and use it within your model. Again, like the supply chain has recovered, but we still have a couple of commodities that we're struggling with, but our contractors know how to accommodate.
Fantastic, thank you. You know, this may or may not be the place, but our schools offer tremendous programming, and that's why we are so picky about our facilities, right? And I don't know that the public really understands, well, I know some that come to give us pre-agenda testimony don't understand the great impacts of having these facilities and how that translates and transfers to the opportunities for our students in career pathing. So something that I think we need to do more of is tell that story. So wherever that can be interwoven, I would recommend that we try to do that. For example, highlight some of the program potentials, as you did with the high school, but all the way down. The gardening, the FFAA, when we say CTE, that's kind of alphabet soup to some people. They don't know that that really translates into skills-based learning that could be anything from robotics to welding, right? They just don't know. And then the other thing, especially with all of those construction partners that we highlighted, I know that we have apprenticeship programs that go directly to them and many of their subs. So that is another tremendous opportunity, not only for, you know, growing local business and enhancing our economy, but a pathway that we are going right from school into the workforce with these partners, and I'd like to lift that up. And the last thing that we didn't talk about, or I missed it, is covered play areas. I know we include them everywhere now, but I had not realized we didn't go back and retrofit all playgrounds. And I had a school come up to me, and I'm trying to remember which school it was, that said their play area was not covered because it wasn't new. Are we going back and retrofitting covers on all of our playgrounds?
So on that, I did capture the item on that miscellaneous slide. We are definitely looking through what options we have in terms of retrofitting or potentially going with a freestanding covered play area over and above what we have at the elementary school. So the item has been reviewed and is getting some attention. I did throw some dollars on slide 84, expansion of covered play areas for elementaries and K-8s. So the item is on the screen. As we talk through the funding side of what we have on hand, we'll definitely keep that in mind.
Can you get us the number that hasn't had the covers yet, too, in our districts, so that we?
So, I'm not aware, and I guess maybe Mike can comment, but I'm not aware that we don't have a covered play area at every elementary school. What we our playgrounds, we've covered the tot lot, but not the youth playgrounds, and that's pretty widespread. But as far as covered play areas, I believe we have a covered play area at our elementary and K-8 schools.
Okay, thank you very much. And expanding.
And so the item
size
here is the item that's on this.
Not the
this
gym
slide
area. I'm not talking about
This
just
is the
the gym.
expansion.
Okay.
We've always had them.
Yeah, not just the PE. I'm talking anywhere where they're out in that heat, especially where there's equipment.
So we have the shade structures,
Yep.
and that's the first item to expand into the youth lot. And then we have the third item, which is expanding the covered play area.
Perfect.
So we have them both under review.
That seems like a low amount. Okay.
That's what I told them on the 6 million, but yeah.
Thank you, Member Gould. Okay, Member Castor-Dental.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to just continue on that topic, the covered play areas for elementary, do you mean the pavilions, the structures that are called pavilions for the PE coach? Okay.
Yes.
Different. So then the youth playgrounds then would be the covered
The actual playgrounds.
on top of the monkey bars
Yes.
and equipment.
Right.
Okay, that's where I've gotten a lot of requests from parents. Some schools pay for it privately through PTA, and others there's no shade. So I know Dover Shores Elementary has made that a big push for me to express. So I just want to say thank you for making the presentation so accessible. I think anyone who goes back through and sits down after dinner and watches the program or the video recording will understand basically what your whole department does and where we are, and I appreciate that. It wasn't filled with lots of technical ease. You made it easy for the board members too, so thank you. And I want to thank you also for pointing out, and this is something that we rarely do, we often will talk about, or others will talk about, how much the taxpayer pays into the school system. And we always know it's all about the students. But you brought up that we have so many vendors who benefit, that we're not just creating workers and citizens, but we're sustaining a lot of companies in this area. And that's important, I think, for people to know and to remember as we're asking for another half-cent sales tax renewal, that it does go back into the community through salaries, through contracts and vendors, and I appreciate that. That's an important part. And thank you so much for all you're doing to keep our schools the best in the state or the country. I really think we have the best building program around. Thank you.
I would certainly concur with that. Dr. Vasquez, thank you for great job. And any closing remarks you have for the board before we adjourn?
I'm just going to add my thanks. You guys do such an amazing job. Everywhere in our entire district, you can see evidence of your work. And again, thank you to taxpayers who have made that possible. So great job, guys. I know it was long. Some of us have seen it more than once, but you really did an amazing job. I really appreciate it.
Haven't seen it as long as we have. Well, thank you all very much.
All right, and before we close, one thing we really didn't touch directly on because it's not related. It's related to the building program, but that is all the work that goes on in terms of procurement. Major undertaking with procurement. I wanted to give a shout out to Roberto and his team, because those companies that have employees that have jobs and houses and can take care of their kids, as you point out, in a lot of cases only have that because of the sales tax, but it falls on Roberto and his team to make sure that we not only efficiently obtain that support, but that we also do it in a highly ethical manner, in a fair and ethical manner. So we rely, that's very important to our reputation here, and we rely heavily on him. So thank you, Roberto, to you and your team as well. All right, with that, we are, actually, I've been going back and studying Robert's rules just a little bit. As some of you might imagine, a couple things have come up. So I think I'm actually supposed to ask for a motion to adjourn. I've never really wanted to do this because, God forbid, I don't get a second. I just don't really like the idea of that. But I'll move to adjourn the meeting. Is there a second?
I've never had so much power on the board.
Yes. It's not as much as you think, because if I don't get a second,
I second.
I'll leave. And I think the vice chair will leave as well. And those of you who didn't want to second it will just sit here as long as it takes. So thank you very much. We have 2 seconds. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
All righty, thank you.